What? Wow. Today, surprise is on every corner. What did he mean by that? Also, why is the volume so low, brother? What's up with that? What am I doing wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Why is the volume actually so low? Test? No, 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 no. It didn't change it. It didn't change it. Am I just uh, hello? What's up? Okay, there it is. Now it works. Now we are good, I guess. I have this, and I can. Do I need to check the other thing? The other thing being the audio in itself, besides just saying, "Oh wow, yeah, this is good," and assuming that it works. I probably should, right? It's like a free action. It's is it the proper example to use? Something along those lines, basically. It's just yeah, you know what? We we can do stuff. We are literally just starting also, so it should be actually fine to try and check. It's if anything, if anything, it should be important to at least pay attention to that. It's the least we can do. We say here that sort of mode. So wow. Anyways, let me actually check. Yeah, let me see. Is it working? It's encoding overloaded. Thank you. But no, let me see. Why? I think it's too low. Is the audio low? I'm the problem. Yeah, I am the problem, right? I am speaking like way too low. Why? Why is that happening? I guess it's also like a meaningless question. It's my problem. It's my problem. That's when I'm speaking too low. Let me see. What's up? Test. Is the audio fine? Wow, it's so smooth today. What? Anyways, it works, I assume. So, I don't know. What if we spent 5 hours here doing absolutely nothing? What if that's the whole stream? It's the most surprising content. Literally nothing. No, no, no. I guess yeah, we are fine. So, uh, do I need anything else? I was actually thinking it would be very fun to do something like, yeah, you know what? It's time to hydrate without just water. So wow, so good. But also, it makes it even harder to actually comprehend anything. So it might be a wise choice to skip that. Anyways, do you have anything to say here before actually starting, or let me actually check this. Does this work? This does work. No, it is lying. It is lying. Is it? Let me see. What's up? Uh, Change in scene. It works and it's fine. Supposedly. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. So what's up? Now we can actually continue, I guess. Also, wait. Can you understand the text? Yeah. It's visible enough. It's thankfully because the text in itself it's so big. It's always not a problem to try to read it by oneself. So that's good also. Even if we have an incredibly low quality, so that's fine. That's ultra useful, I guess. Uh, an unobserved positive aspect. It's like it has literally always been like that, but I don't know, an analyzed existence or something along those lines. Anyway, now for real. let me actually focus. Good day, good morning, good evening. Today we found ourselves yet again gathered to read what? The Mahabharata. Where did we actually live? Today I actually kinda forgot to do my action of checking back. What did we have to read? Where are we in the story? I know we are like how much? Almost 2.5, no, 20.5%, no, not 20.5, 25% done, almost along those lines, basically. So yeah, we are good. The point is we are good. We are progressing well enough, and I don't know, yeah. Unavoidably, it's a complicated text in the sense that it talks out way too many outer ideas, things that in our culture don't get discussed at all. So it's complicated to uh, properly state this stuff in some cases. But anyways, it handles itself very well, and it brings forward the possibility of analysis very correctly. So it's not such an issue, I would say. Also, another question now that I realize, can you also read the other text? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that I sometimes don't check stuff. I just go ahead and add it to the stream. I should probably stop being careless. I was also, I don't know. Let me actually start with this, man. Why am I wasting so much time? We have like a more than 5,000 pages still to read. So, have a wonderful day. Have a sitting, I guess, I don't know, live. Be ready. Now we're going to start with the Mahabharata. We left last time in conversations about very spiritual stuff, very basic ideas and such, so it has gotten itself to be a very interesting reading thus far. I would also add, yeah, but sadly, it takes a lot to get to interesting points, so it also needs patience. It demands patience to get to interesting conclusions and interesting points and whatnot. So let us now then begin. Anything else? No. Now for real, where are we? So, Canto 215. Markandeya Samasya Bharava continued. The Watcher. What's up? Why is this not moving? Ah, there it is. The Watcher continued. Cursed by the Muni, I tried to pacify him. Forgive me, O Muni, I did not do this on purpose. Worshipful one, do not be angry. The Rishi replied, I cannot withdraw the curse that I have pronounced, but out of compassion for you, I will do you a favor. True, though born in the Sudravarna, you will be a pious man and worship your parents, and by worshipping them, you will attain great punya. You will remember your past life, and you will go to Swargaloka. When you have redeemed from this curse, you will become a Brahmana once more. Manavotama. Thus did the powerful Rishi curse me, and thus did I atone for my sin and placate him. Then, excellent Brahmana, I drew out the arrow from his body and took him into the asrama. He was alive and he recovered. This is what happened to me long ago, in my last life, and I have told you how I will find heaven in the hereafter. The Brahmana said, O knowing one, do not grieve, for all men are subject to joy and sorrow. It is in keeping with your dharma that you slaughter animals and sell their meat. But you are always devoted to the path of virtue and learn in the mysterious ways of the world. What you do is your duty, and the taint of evil karma will not attach to you. After a short time, you will regain your Brahmanic, anyways, your Brahmanic status. In fact, I consider you a Brahmana even now. I have no doubt about this. The Brahmana who is vain and haughty, who is addicted to vice and wedded to evil, shameful practices, is like a Sudra. On the other hand, a Sudra who wears virtue, self-restraint, and truth like ornaments is like a Brahmana. A man becomes a Brahmana by dint of his character and by his own evil karma. A man invites doom. I believe that your sin has now been wiped away. You must not grieve, for men like you, who are so good and learned in the subtleties of philosophy and the ways of the world, can have no cause for grief. The vulture replied, physical illnesses should be cured with medicines, and mental ones with spiritual wisdom. This is the power of knowledge. Knowing this, wise men should not behave like callow boys. Only men of little intelligence are overpowered by grief when something unpleasant happens to them, or when something desirable does not. All beings are subject to feelings of grief or joy. It is not unique to any single species of creature or class of men. Knowing that this is so, people quickly change their ways, and if they recognize it early, they can cure themselves of it altogether. Men who worry about this make themselves unhappy. Wise men, whose knowledge has made them contented and who are indifferent to sorrow and joy alike, are truly happy. The wise are always contented and the foolish always discontented. There is no end to discontentment. Contentment is the highest form of happiness. People who have found the perfect path do not grieve. They are aware of the final destiny of all creatures. One must not give way to discontent. It is a noxious poison. It kills those who have not developed their intellect. Like a snake kills a child. The man who lacks wisdom and who is confused when he finds himself in a situation where he has to exercise his intellect is hardly a man. All our actions have their consequences. The man who lives a life of passive indifference to what happens around him achieves nothing. Instead of merely grumbling, one must try to find the way to gain freedom. For what? Freedom from spiritual bondage. And when the means to salvation are found, he must free himself from his dependence on the senses. The man who has attained a high state of spiritual knowledge is always conscious of the impermanence of all phenomena. He keeps the final destruction of everything in mind and never grieves. I, too, O sage one, do not grieve. I am biding my time while I live out this present life. Purushottama, that is why I am not plagued by uncertainty. The Brahmana said, you are wise and evolved. Great is your intellect. You, who know the sacred scriptures, are content, are content with your spiritual wisdom. I can see no faults in you. Farewell, O best of the pious. May you prosper. May righteousness be your armor, and may you be constant in Dharma. Markandeya continues. The Vajra said to the Brahmana, that has to, so be it. The Brahmana walked around the mid-cellar in Pradakshina and left. The Brahmana went back home and was conscientious of his attention to his elderly parents. This story I have told you, and which you wanted to hear, Yudhishthira, my son, is replete with wisdom, the virtues of woman's devotion to their husbands, and of filial worship. The Yudhishthira says, Mahamuni, you have narrated this wonderful story, and listening to you made the hours pass as if they were a mere moment. But I am not yet satiated when listening to your discourse. That's what are we in? Canto 215. Uh, the question is, I don't think it really is that complex. What is the point? This is very, very obviously. I assume it shouldn't be all that complicated to highlight that. Yeah, it talks about way too many things as always, but unavoidably, always comments aside, the most important discussion happening in this one particular canto is the what is it? It's the proper shouldn't be just the impermanence of being, the styles of detachment from the rest of the physical world, I guess, something along those lines. The Watcher replied, uh, from here up to. I kinda marked way too much here. Yeah, let me fire from this. What's up? There it is. All of this stuff is what talks out the impermanence of being and the capacity to not be so attached to the emotions, sensations, encounters of life, the nature of understanding that unavoidably everything has an end and that everything will be lost at some point in time, so it becomes quite useless to be always grieving. I guess, yeah, it's a philosophical question in terms of, wow, yeah, we have to not be attached to stuff and we have to not be interested in the process of grieving. We don't have to naturalize the action of feeling so bad because something has been lost. I, I remember I was seeing something exactly, not just thinking about it by myself, but rather while consuming other content, finding myself in discussion once again with this idea of how the Hindus in general have this capacity to not be so affected by all of these events. And yeah, it's inside of this, we find the myth of, yeah, attachment and grief are emotions that are not required. I guess one of the strikingly dissimilar differences that we all possess in the what are we West compared to the Eastern traditions, at least to I guess the Hinduistic one, if nothing else, is the capacity to feel so much a need to be attached to stuff, if we have to name it properly. Basically, the nature of and now we're going to be feeling bad, and now we're going to be having issues, and we are going to not be dwelling so much on happiness and having all of these great sensations or whatever. It does happen that we might not feel the best, but it also happens. I think a proper way to put it is, I don't know, things of not the best order also exist. Life is not such an easy thing to handle in a certain way, not because it is unbearable, but rather because in itself it's complicated to have such a need to always feel everything so much. So it becomes the preached message that we should try as much as possible to not be in the constant process of suffering. I'm obviously making it up. I cannot have that certainty, but I assume that the way in which they discuss these issues and that forces the whole final idea to be, yeah, you know what? You shouldn't be suffering. You shouldn't be so sorry. You shouldn't be grieving. Grief is associated just as a bad thing, not a process in itself. In the Western world, what happens is we possess a different myth to explain and to a different explanation for what grieving in itself is. So we find ourselves justifying it, so to speak, from a completely different viewpoint. If you are a Hinduistic person and you are trying to talk about grief, you're not going to be finding a description that fits just the, oh wow, yeah. You know what? We have these sensations that might not be the best, and we might also want to get rid of them. That's it. Not so really. I think that it goes more along the lines of, well, We have problems. Unavoidably, we all have problems, but the process of understanding what the loss means allows for a different mode of dealing with the situations of life. Let's say like this. They assume that any human being can almost instantly acquire and integrate into their existence the concepts that they utilize of, or the, yeah, I guess in this case it doesn't go beyond the spiritual or mythological explanations for stuff like, oh yeah, you know what, we have, there is this wheel of samsara, there is this wheel of karma, dharma, karma, and all of those things. And it is ordained that every single human being has to go through that at least once. So it becomes useless for us, it becomes just a burden in our existence to try so hard to, let's say, pay attention to the fact that one person has died. Because the reality is, we all die, but we all also are reincarnated into a better existence as long as we can do the things in a proper way. It's a it's not a complicated discussion. It's just if you understand the rest of the mythology, it makes sense that yeah, grief becomes a problem that they believe they have already solved. Therefore, it is useless for anybody to be worrying about grief. Not because in itself grief is not a good thing to have. I would even say they have naturalized the mode of understanding and grieving things through their particular lens of viewing how everyone gets to live and to persist, and how the soul lives not exactly the world of the living, but rather returns to the cycle in a different form until the human itself, or until the essence itself of that being is liberated from all bad things. Something along those lines is what forces an explanation of sorts, what allows them to say, yeah, you know what, we shouldn't be actually wasting so much of our time worrying so much about stuff of this sort. It is meaningless for both you and me to be thinking about everything. Why? Because we already have an explanation. That's why we can. I Once again, I am a Westerner talking about a completely different tradition, so that is an ultimately important point to take into account. But I assume that they are not speaking about grieving in this sense because you have integrated the religion with the explanation of the rest of the world, so that the mode of grieving is to accept that things will come back, that humans or beings in themselves live in this will, and to call it grieving is to give it a category that otherwise it is utilized, yeah, finds itself being utilized only to denote and to highlight those things which we can consider negative, and only then it becomes a possibility for anyone to talk about grieving. So they are not going to say, yeah, we already have a proper way of grieving. Well, let's say grieving in itself is a mechanism that might be activated through any mode that you want. Okay, but what we are trying to offer you with Hinduism is this mode of recognizing the world. So you shouldn't be so ashamed of it. You shouldn't be so. You shouldn't be a kid throwing a tantrum because your grandparents died, let's say. It's a different mode of organizing both the tradition and the modes of existence. It's the celebration. Ah, yeah, that's why it's complicated. It's the celebration of other things also. But anyways, the point itself at this point has sort of made itself clear, I guess. That's what this particular canto centers the most about. There are many other things, but the central discussion is, yeah, grieving and being able of recognizing that grief might not be exactly the best way of existence and the best action to take when we are alive. Not that they are not at all grieving, but rather that the way in which they do that is in a completely different mode from what we are accustomed here. Here we can take a day out and cry or fallen people. There, you just meditate on the fact that, yeah, they have now re-entered. Maybe if they did everything well, they are going to be finding themselves in the next samsara or liberated from all pain in an existence that will be so much better. Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, uh, it's interesting, but not not so much I need to actually spend, I don't know, 5 hours highlighting just that. It's, if you understand what I was trying to say, it's basically just that. It's not truly that complex. It's just, in that case, yeah, that they talk out grieving in a different way. They cannot recognize it as such because it might carry a negative connotation. Like, for example, a modern, more Western like example, you cannot have the discussions. We cannot have confrontations. It's not something good to have. Even if in themselves you can have a discussion about things, in a mode in which there is no chaos, a discussion is just the conversation between two sides trying to reach an agreement or understanding of sorts. That same thing happens here. Grieving might be defined as, or grieving might be defined as the process of getting to in itself process and mourn the loss of someone that you appreciate. Okay, they are not considering that as grieving. Grieving in this context means, particularly it seems, to just stop your existence because something has been lost in the world, something like that. But yeah, let me continue, anyways. Canto 216, I guess. Markandeya Samasya Parva. Yeah, no, wait. Yeah, Markandeya Samasya Parva continue. But let me drink water before doing that. Also, I'm going to say it before I forget. We had a lag for some reason. I don't even know why, but it seems to not be happening. So don't worry about it. Basically, we are good. Anyways, continuing. But Sampayana continued. The noble Yudhishthira listens to this super religious discourse and he says to Rishi Markandeya, why did Agnideva, the fire god, hide himself in water? And why did the splendid Angirasa become Agni to convey the oblations when Agni had disappeared into the water? Fire is one, but it seems to divide itself and become many. Worshipful one, I want to know about these and other things as well. How was how was Kumara born? How did he come to be known as the son of Agni? How was he born to Rudra, Ganga, and Kritika? Holy Brigunandana, I am eager to learn how these things happened. Great Muni, I am curious about all this. Markandeya replies, there is an ancient tale told about how Agnideva, the conveyor of oblations, went in a temper to the forest in order to perform a penance, and Girasa transformed himself into Agni and freed the world from darkness and anguish with his warmth. Long, long ago, Mahavaho, the great Angirasa performed a wonderful tapasya in his asarama. He was more splendid than the bearer of oblations, Agni-deva, and lit up the universe. Agni was performing a penance at the same time and was annoyed by Angirasa's brilliance. Depressed and not knowing what to do, that god thought to himself, Brahma has created another Agni for the world, because I have been at Tapasya. My services as the deity of fire have been dispensed with. He thought about how he could re-establish himself as the god of fire. He saw the great Muni Angirasa warming the whole universe as fire does, and approached him slowly and fearfully. Angirasa said to him, Establish yourself quickly as the life-giving fire of the universe. Everyone in Triloka knows that you were created by Brahma to dispel the primeval, primeval darkness. Oh, destroyer of darkness, occupy your proper place. Agni replied, my reputation is tarnished now, and you have become the fire god. People will know you, and not me, as Agni. I have relinquished my status of being fire god. You be the primeval fire, and I shall officiate as the second, or Parhapatyaka Agni. Angirasa said, you must reinstate yourself as the god of fire and the destroyer of darkness, and resume your duty of ensuring that the people have a clear path to Swarga. Lord, make me have your first child. Markandeya continues. Hearing Angirasa's words, Agni complied, and Angirasa had a son named Brihaspati. The Devas knew that he was Angirasa's first son, born of Agni, and, O Mahabharata, they came to probe the mystery, and they accepted Angirasa's explanation of how this had happened. Now, I will name and describe all the different types of fire, as the Brahmanas know them, and their uses. That's Canto 216. What is it trying to convey? Ah, wonderful idea. It's I remember I'm going to just be copying what I heard from a different discussion conversation. All of these ideas of fires are what motivates the world itself to be. Fire as in the essence that fills the world with itself, so to speak. The fire is what is found within any existence that allows itself to be moved. It's what gives life in a certain way, in which also that is important, in a way in which something like water cannot do, because water as an element is not capable of conveying something along the lines of what the animosity and explosiveness of fire possesses. It's like fire is just found or utilized as a metaphor to explain that spirit of, in this case it's not about just humanity, it's once again the life that is found within all existence, which is a more primal sort of fire in terms of, yeah, just the thing which moves all beings, the main motivation behind what allows things to be, so to speak. If we don't have, no, trying to follow the structure of what is being narrated, if Agni Deva isn't who is in charge of having the fire, of carrying that flame to the rest of the universe, but instead, if we find it in Angirasa, the way in which we ourselves operate would be different. That's what it is trying to talk about. And also, I don't know exactly that one part. That was, I guess it was sort of surprising. I wasn't really expecting to read that. We are talking about gods, so it shouldn't be something that it is. I guess in the Western tradition, we don't utilize that it's for deities, rather you don't say, oh yeah, Agni was performing a penance at the same time and was annoyed by Angerasa's brilliance. Fine. The priest are not knowing what to do. You don't say that about a god. Deities themselves have a completely different way of being explained. They are not so human here, so that's why it's surprising to see that, yeah, they are saying, yeah, this god was just like us having a shitty day, basically. But that's, in a certain way, brilliant. I assume it makes it also capable of now utilizing itself or being utilizable in the context of, and it might also be trying to talk about, in a particular way, the explanation of, okay, the context of not occupying the place which we have been given in existence. The inability to recognize where we belong because we find ourselves to be in a state of illness, of in this case, I guess, mental illness. That's what it also is trying to talk about in a certain way. Why? Because Agni is the embodiment of fire that is found within us, so Agni is, in a certain way, that thing which we, all of us, carry in ourselves and whatnot. So it's interesting. The most important thing, it's interesting. But yeah, at that point also, as I was saying, it makes it sort of hard to guess exactly which direction it is trying to take and whatnot. So that will be it for Canto 216. No, no more comments. Thank you. Now, continuing on to Canto 217. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. All them of the Gurus. Angirasa was the third son of Varama, and he had a wife named Subha. Hear about the children he had by her. Rahan, his son Brihaspati's fame was legend. He was generous and powerful. His intelligence and learning were profound, and he had a great reputation as a counselor. Angirasa's eldest daughter was Branumati. She was the most beautiful of all his children. His second daughter was called Raga, so named because she was loved by all creatures. Sinivali was his third daughter. Her body was so slender that she was visible from certain angles and invisible from others, and for this reason she was compared to Rudra's daughter. Archishmati was his fourth daughter, and she was so named because of her radiance. His fifth daughter was Havishmati, so named because she accepted Havis, oblations. The sixth daughter of Angirasa was called Mahishmati, and she was very devout. The intelligent Mahamati was his seventh daughter. She is always present at sacrifices of great grandeur. This revered daughter of Angirasa, who is known to be without rival, and about whom people utter the word Kuhu Kuhu, is also known as Kuhu Kuhu. Uh, which one? What? Which one is the most revered? Who is Kuhu Kuhu, brother? Also, that's it? That's Canto. Okay, that's Canto 207. Thank you. Thank you for reading. This was incredibly exhausting. I cannot believe it. So, what is this trying to talk about? I guess it's to a certain degree complicated because we're sort of tracing back to what is the forms of fire identified not in the natural fire itself, but in this second incarnation of fire, which is not the main element that we utilize to talk about the essence of the world. I guess I think the easiest explanation is just a mode to explain which things are called upon in the different modes of appreciating in itself fire. You are thinking about a certain deity when you are doing something in particular with the fire. You're not just everything goes to the same fire. No. Different fires possess different names so that the rituals are formally separated. That's why the myth comes to explain their existence. Then we insert that myth into reality to say, yeah, you know what, and we have touched so many ways of talking about these things, so many modes of seeing and perceiving that, yeah, let's say, all of these daughters exist, all of these modes of understanding and discussing fire are. So, yeah, it's interesting, but I don't think it's incredibly short. It doesn't possess that much of a depthness. It's more along the lines of, well, yeah, you have this rapid explanation. I assume, just like it has happened in many other times, that we are going to be revisiting this more in depth later on. I assume. I don't actually hope for it, but I assume that it will happen. But yeah, that's, as I said, Gun to 217. Anyways, uh, how long is this one? It's just what? Only two? Yeah, only 2 pages long. So let me read this one instead of drinking anything. And after that, yeah, um, let's take like 1 minute or like to drink water and whatnot. But for now, country 218. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. Brihaspati had a wife named Tara, who was from the moon. She had 6 of his sons, born of 6 different fires, and 1 daughter. Brihaspati's son Sansu was a great tapasvin. He is the fire in whose honor ghee is offered at the Paurnamasya Yagna and other sacrifices. At the Chaturmasya Yagna and Asumedha Yagna, animals are offered in his honor. And we know him by the way he manifests himself in multiple flames. Sanku's, Sanku's wife was called Satya. She was of matchless beauty and was born from Dharma to embody truth. Sanku's son was the whole, blazing fire, and he had 3 deeply religious daughters. The fire which is honored with the first oblations at all sacrifices is his first son, named Bharadwaha. Sanku's second son is called Bharata or Bharata, in whose honor ghee is offered with the sacrificial ladle, the saruk, at all the full moon, Paurnamasya sacrifices. Besides these, there were other sons of whom Bharata was the eldest, and he had a daughter called Bharati. Bharata is the son of Prajapati Bharata Agni, and Bharatotama, because of the honor accorded to him, he is also called Great. Bira is Bharadwaja's wife, and her son is also named Bira. The Brahmanas say that he is worshipped with the same hymns as Soma is, and with offerings of ghee, joined with Soma during the second round of ghee oblation. He is also called Rataprabhu, Ratatahwana, and Kumhareta. He had a son named Siddhi by his wife Sarayu, who outshone the sun in splendor. As the presiding deity of the fire sacrifice, he is always named in the hymns of praise to fire. The fire, named Nischayavana, only praises the earth. His good name, splendor and prosperity, never wane. The sinless fire, named Satya, blazing with pure energy, is Nischayavana's son. He is free from all impurities and is not defiled by sin. He is the regulator of time. This fire has another name, Niskriti, because he brought about the Niskriti, redemption of all creatures. When properly worshipped, he guarantees good fortune. His son is Swana, the generator of all diseases. He inflicts great suffering, no, intense suffering, making his victims cry out loud. He lives in the intelligence of the universe. anyways, Brihaspati's third son is called Biswahit by men of spiritual wisdom, the fire that manifests as the internal heat of the body, which digests the food of all creatures, is the fourth son of Brihaspati, known throughout all the worlds, O Bharata, as Wis- Biswabhuk. He is self-restrained, of great dharma, and a brahmachari. Brahmanas worship him at the Pakayagna. The sacred river Gumati is Biswabhuk's wife, and all pious men perform the sacred rites on her banks. that apocalyptic water drinking sea. Fa- what? That apocalyptic water drinking sea fire called Badava is Brihaspati's fifth son. This Brahmic agni has a tendency to move upwards and is therefore called Urdbak. Wow. It's called Urdbabhavaga. Its home is the vital air, the life force called prana. The sixth son is Svishtakrit. Through him, oblations became Svishta, or properly offered. The Udadhara oblation is always made in his honor. The far called Manyuti becomes enraged when the earth's beings become peaceful. The inexorable, and the most volatile fire is Brihaspati's daughter and is known as Swaha. She is present in all matter. Swaha had three sons by the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. By Sattva, she had a son whose beauty had no equal in Devaloka. The gods named him Kama Agni. By Rajas, she had a son named Amokya, the invisible fire, the destroyer of his enemies in battle. He is sure of victory, and so he curbs his anger. He is armed with a bow and sits adorned with flower garlands on a chariot. By Tamas also, Swaha had a son, the great Uktha, the means to salvation, who is praised by the three Ukthas. He is the originator of the sacred words of the Veda, and this, therefore, Tamaswasam, or the means to moksha, says Markandeya. Yeah, that's it. That's Canto 218, I think. Yeah. Um, Now, the question is, I already sort of hinted at this before. We were just discussing the explanations, the mythological explanations for fires, and why they are at last then included in all the rituals, and they need to. Once again, once you can properly name something, you can properly give it a sufficient enough place in your society, in your culture, in everything that you have. So, by being capable of identifying, talking about, and directly addressing the existence of all of these fires, what they were doing was they were slowly ordering things around in order to explain why things are the way they are. This is a very general explanation still, and the why is this important right now is also because I I I, I assume that particularly for the context, it is the great warrior who feels that they have sort of lost their fire. Take into consideration that the story of the Pandavas is, so far, the quickest rundown possible. They had an altercate with some cousins, they lost, and now they are, while doing one of the many rituals that comes with losing to a family member, in the way in which they did, they are restoring slowly their faith in themselves. That's what is sort of happening. That's why also now we need to talk about this sort of stuff. Because it's useful to be capable of identifying, discussing, and addressing things like, yeah, the meaning found within the stuff of yeah, we all are to some degree found or filled with fire. Can you understand what fire fills your soul, you human being, and whatnot? So it's interesting, but it is still complicated to fully address, I would say. It's something, but it's not fully descriptive. I guess it's. I don't like the way in which they introduce so many fires. Personally, I don't find it useful to have so many similar elements residing within just one event. You are. They create way too many deities, in this case for the fire itself, to later on explain all the issues that also arise with fire. It's how to say it properly. It's something along the lines of, yeah, these people live their whole lives center around the possession of fire. You might say even, you want a basic explanation as to why this might be, why this gets to happen in their case? Okay, assume that the easiest answer always is probably they needed fire, so they created the myths to be capable of sustaining the necessity to have fires around them always. And so that's why we find ourselves still talking about the fire and the inner fire and whatnot. The most important idea is to understand that, yeah, they required to have those fireplaces in themselves as a physical space, not as a concept, but as a physical space. Now, from there, what I am saying is the issue of within one singular fire, there might be 20 different gods residing, and it depends on what happened with the fire itself, which god you are understanding resides exactly at that moment. There is also something very funny that is not being talked about here, and I don't like that also. It is being omitted. Do all the single fire deities, entities, sons of other fire deities, however we name them, all these other fires, do they literally reside within the same thing? It was sort of mentioned in one place, something along the lines of, oh yeah, yeah, when they in one of the many rituals in which oblations are offered to the fire and the fire is offered ghee, one or two different deities share that offering. Okay, but all the rest of the time, besides that one occasion, impossible to know. Um, yeah, I'm not trying to be coy in terms of, oh, well, yeah, but is it one god? Is it multiple gods? Well, I don't know, right? This seems to be not defined enough. Can you define it for me? No, it's just that actually there is no real explanation for it. There is no mode of fully getting to understand. Okay, is it always the same thing that I am dealing with? Is it just in some cases? There are some particular distinctions that make them more understandable. There are at least the main inner fire that was distinguished in one paragraph, the most pure type of fire, and the most violent types of fire, which even then were categorized into two different groups: the violent but not destructive, and the violent and harmful to everything else types of fire. There is also this other conceptual fire that comes at the end of not at the end, when everything else is at ease. It's like the utilization of the word fire not to signify a flame in itself, but rather a sensation, a certain feeling that ignites itself into animals to throw them again into chaos once all beings, all living beings are at peace, are living peacefully. What was said before, in accordance to that explanation. But yeah, I don't think there is that much more to say. Actually, it's understandable enough. Anyways, it's I don't know. I was also thrown off by what is it? What is the? Let me see if I can find it. Also, yeah, I removed myself. I am so good at this. You wouldn't believe it. Sorry. Let me see. Son is Swana, the generator of all diseases. He inflicts intense suffering, making his victims cry out aloud. He lives in the intelligence of the universe. What are you talking about? Anyways, completely. Anyways, but yeah, that's Canto 219. I think it was. No, this is Canto 219. That was 218. Cool. Ah, so let me see, bro. And so I don't know. I'm starting to get a little bit. I wouldn't say anxious, just interested in seeing when the fuck we actually get to switch to a new canto, bro. Not to a new canto, to a new parva. You know, we have been in the Markandeya Samasya Parva for the last, I think, 50, 60, 70 cantos. So we are kind of due with new cantos instead of remaining in just this one. Anyway, move ahead. Canto 219. Markandeya Samasya Parva continue. Markandeya continues. Uktha performed a severe penance lasting for many years, with the aim of having a son as pious as Savarahamana. He invoked with Dhyariti hymns the five sacred fires, Kasyapa, Vasishta, Prana, and Girasa's son, Syavana, and Suvarachaka. The flames emitted a form of bright and vivacious energy in five different colors. The head of this form was the color of a raging fire. Its arms dazzled like the sun. Its skin and eyes were tawny gold, and its feet were black. O Mahabharata! The five who were invoked were of great Tapasya Shakti and gave the form its five colors, and that is why the celestial being that emerged from the fire is described as being one with these fives. This being, Tapa, is the progenitor of the five tribes. The penance continued for 10,000 years, and an awesome, dreadful fire blazed forth. That was born of the bitters in order to begin the work of creation. From his head and mouth he created day and night. Brihat and Ratandara were the tips of life. He created Shiva from his navel, Indra from his strength, Vayanagni from his soul, and from his two arms the hymns Udatta and Anudatta. He pronounced the mind and the five senses and everything else as well. Next, he created the five sons of the Pitters. Paranidhi was the son of Brihadrata, who was Kasyapa's son. Banu, or Behanu, was the grandson of Tyavana. Sauhara was Suvarchaka's son, and Anudatta was the son of Parana. He is said to have created these 25 beings. Tapa created 15 other gods who obstruct sacrifices. They are Subhima, Atibhima, Bhima, Bhimavala, and Avala. Bhimavala and Avala, Sumitra, Mitravanta, Mitragna, Mitravadhana, Mitradharma, and Surapravira, Bira and Suresha, Subarachasa, and Surahantara. These are divided into three classes of five each, and living in this world, they destroy the sacrifices of the devas in Devaloka. They frustrate their goals and spoil their oblations of ghee. They do this only to spite the sacred fires that convey these offerings to the gods. If the officiating priests are watchful, they place oblations in honor of these despoilers outside the sacrificial altar, and this prevents them from entering the place where the sacred fire is lit. They convey the oblations on wings. When a beast with hymns, they do not spoil the sacrificial rites. Brihadukta, one of Tapa's sons, belongs to the earth. He is worshipped here in this world by pious men performing Agnihotra sacrifices. Another son, Ratantara, accepts oblations on behalf of Mitravinda, the renowned Tapa, was very happy with his sons. Now that is Canto 219. Eh, I don't think there is really that much of a different lesson in any other way than what. Also, I wasn't going crazy. I knew I was like incredibly tiny. I never adjusted that. My bad. Anyways, as I was trying to say, also, give me like half a second. I want to adjust myself. Why? Because I like doing that, brother. Why? Bro. Wow, such a change. So keen. But I think it's not much more than what I have already described. The only addition that we also gain is the explanation, and this also I already remember. Tapa is the progenitor of the five tribes, as in fire being the constituent element for all existing beings. Sorry, not human, all existing beings. And besides that, yeah, the other roles of the rest of fires, but yeah, at some point I can also say, at least thus far, it feels like this different. Dappa created 15 other gods who abstract sacrifices, and no details about them. Uh, it's kinda meaningless. Those bad fires that also exist to collude with the good fires. So no true detail to spend there, no true thing to pay attention to. Let's say. But anyways, moving on ahead, Canto 220, Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. The fire named Mahabharata was governed by strict laws of tapasya. He is also called Pushtimati because when he is propitiated satisfactorily, he guarantees Pushti, prosperity. He is called Bharata because he nurtures all creatures. The other fire is named Shiva because he is devoted to the worship of Shakti, the feminine energy of the forces of nature, and because he always alleviates the sorrows of all creatures that are troubled. He is called Shiva, the giver of well. When Tapa had acquired great ascetic wealth by his tapasya, he had an intellectually brilliant son named Purandara to inherit this wealth. He had another son named Ushma, who is the fire that is present in matter when it vaporizes. A third son was Manu, who officiated as Prajapati. Brahmanas who are learned in the Vedas speak of the exploits of his sons, the fire Samhu and the effulgent Asatriya. Thus did Tapa give birth to five Urhaskara Agnis, all bright as gold, that take the Somaraja during sacrifices. The great sun god, when tired after his day's labors, is the fire known as Prasanta. He created the Asuras and other terrible creatures, and Girasa created Prahapati Vahanu, one of Tapa's sons. Brahmanas learned in the Vedas refer to this son as Briharbhanu, the great Bhanu. Bhanu married Supraja, the daughter of Suryadeva. She and Briharbhanu gave birth to six sons. Let me describe their children for you. To you, there is the far who gives strength to the weak, and he is called Balada, the giver of strength. He is the first son of Banu. Then there is the fire that looks dreadful when the world is in a state of tranquility. He is called Mansuman, and he is the second son of Banu. Next is the fire in whose honor oblations of ghee are poured during the Darsa and Paurnamasya Yagnas, who is known to the people of the world as Vishnu. He is the third of Banu's sons, and he has two names, Angirasa and Dharetiman. Then there is the fire to whom, with Indra, the Agrayana oblation is given. He is named Agrayana, and he is Vanu's first son. fifth son of Hanu is Agraha, from whom the daily oblations made for the performance of the Chitramasya Yagna are taken, and Stubha is the sixth son of Hanu. Nisa was another wife of Manus, and she too is named Hanu. She had one daughter, two Agnisomas, and also five other Agnis, fire gods. The Fulsant fire god who is honored with the first offerings, along with Indra, god of the clouds, is Baiswanara. The second son of Manu and Vanu is the Agni called Biswapati, the lord of all the worlds. The daughter of Manu is called Svistrakrit because one earns great punya by offering oblations to her. Rohini is her other name, and though she was the daughter of Hiranyakasipu, she became his wife because of her evil deeds. She is, however, one of the Prajapatis, and that other fire which inhabits the life breaths of all creatures and which gives them life is called Sanihita. He makes our senses recognize sound and shape. Then comes the divine spirit, whose spot is stained with black and white marks, who funds fire and who, though sinless, is responsible for evil karma. The wise regard him, the fire Kapila, as a great rishi. Kapila is the propounder of the system of yoga called Sankhya, the fire through which the elemental spirits always receive agara or offerings which people make at the performance of all special rites is called agrani. There are bright fires known the world over which were created for the rectification of the Agnihotra rites when they were marred by any defects. If fires overlap because of the wind, they must be set right by performing Astakapala Puja in honor of the fire Suchi. If the certain fire comes in contact with the two other fires, then the rectifying Astakapala rites must be performed in honor of the Agniviti. If the fire called Nivesa burning in its allotted place comes into contact with the fire called Devagni, then the Astakapala rites must be performed in honor of the fire Suchi. If the constant fire is touched by a woman during her menstrual period, then the Astakapala rites must be performed in honor of the Agni called Basuman. If during the performance of Agnihotra Pujas anyone speaks of the death of any creature, or if an animal dies, the rites can be purified by means of the Astakapala rites in honor of the Surabhiman Agni. The Brahmana who, because of his zeal, is unable to offer oblations to the sacred fire for 3 nights, must make amends by performing the Astakapala rites in honor of the northern fire. He who, he who has performed the Darasa and the Paurnamasya rites must make any necessary rectifications with the performance of the Astakapala rites in honor of the Patikrit fire. If the fire of a Virting room comes in contact with the undying sacred fire, it must be purified by performing Astakapala rites in honor of the Agni Managni, says Markandeya. That's Canto 220, 221. What the fuck is this 220? I'm starting to get fucking irritated about all of these fires at this point. But yeah, more fires. I guess the only proper pronunciation to make is fires also equal gods, also equal devas, also equal good deities. So that's an interesting thing. I didn't notice that when I was reading the other fires. I thought, I guess it adds another layer of complexity that I might not have wanted at all to recognize, sort of. That is complicated to pick up at all because it's kind of hard or it's kind of bad to actually try to say, you know what, yeah, we have these things. We have, in this case, we are talking about all of these fires and all of these sensations and all of this stuff. And what also happens with that is that we have, let's say, the possibility of realizing, the possibility of discussing how many fires that exist within this long narration on about fires affect directly the world. And that is sort of basic, but at the same time, it becomes more complicated once you also add into consideration that and fires have other fires, and the fire in itself carries a sort of hidden potential. They are not at all talking that much about the potential. In a certain way, unavoidably, when we think about fire, we also think about the potentiality. So it should be implicit that many of these things are just forms that are created that allow other things to also be. So I don't know, it's complicated, let's say. It's, if nothing else, it's complicated. But yeah, it so far it's understandable. Now, any other comment? I don't think I have. About the fires in particular being talked about here, I don't think I can say anything. I let me say it like this. I understand the necessity to separate, differentiate, be capable of naming them and whatnot, but once again, it is risky to do this because they are not truly distant from one another. There are very few cases in which they are separated and indicated as different fires and whatnot. So that makes them hard to position in a proper place in terms of, I don't know. You have to imagine a what is it? Any kind of sacrifice that they perform or oblation, ritual that they perform. Easier. Any ritual that they perform, they might have 5, 6 different fires. Okay, and how many spirits are with living within those fires, inside those fires? How many of these deities are placed in all of those? No explanation whatsoever. So, um, just moving on, I guess, onto a greener grass. So yeah, Canto 221. Markandeya Samasya Parva continues. Markandeya continues. Mudita was the favorite wife of the pharaoh Saha. She used to live in water, and Saha, who is the lord of earth and sky, had a son, the sacred fire named Adbhuta. With her, learned Brahmanas believe that this fire is the ruler and inner soul of all creatures. He is worthy of worship, resplendent, and the lord of all the Mahabharutas. The elements and this fire, also called Grihapati, is worshipped at all sacrifices and is the instrument by which all oblations made in this world are conveyed to the gods. The son of Saha, Adbhuta, the great fire, is the soul of the waters. He is the prince and ruler of the sky and the lord of everything great. His son, the Bharatagni, consumes the dead bodies of all creatures. His first offering, Kratu, is known as Niyata of the performance of the Agnistoma Yagna. That mighty elemental fire, Saha, is always missed by the Devas because when he sees Niyata approaching him, he hides in the sea from fear of contamination. On one occasion, the Devas searched for him everywhere but could not find him. The four saw Atharva and said to him, Valiant being, perform the oblations for the Devas. I am disabled and weak. Take the form of the red-eyed fire and do me this favor. Having made this request of Atharavan, the fire went away to hide, but the fish revealed his hiding place, and the furious fire cursed them in anger, saying, You shall be the food of all creatures in various ways. Then that fire, Saha, the conveyor of oblations, spoke to Atharva again and made the same request. The devas pleaded with him, but he refused to bring them their habits. He lost consciousness. He lost consciousness and died. Leaving his material body, he entered the bowels of the earth, and wherever he met the earth, he created different metals. Energy emanated from him. Early perfumes were created from his pus. The deodar, the cedar, the sprang from his bones. Glass emerged from his phlegm. The emerald came from his bile, and iron from his liver. Wow. What? Ever since, the earth has been enriched with these three substances wood, stone, and metal. The clouds were made from his nails, and coral from his veins, and various other metals were produced from his body, O king. After shedding his physical body, he remained absorbed in dhyana. When Baregu and Angirasa performed their penance, they succeeded in waking him, and, gratified by their tapasya, he burned with intensity. But as soon as he saw Rishi Atharva, he dove into his watery hideout again. At this extinguishing of the fire, the whole world was frightened and sought the protection of Atharva. The devas and other beings began to worship him. Atharva searched to see, while those anxious beings looked on in eager anticipation. He found the fire and began the work of creation. This is the story of how the fire was destroyed and then called back to life by the venerable Atharva. Now he carries the offerings of all creatures, and, living in the sea and always on the move, produced the various fires mentioned in the Vedas. The mothers of the fires are the rivers, Sindhu and the five rivers, Devika and Saraswati, Ganga, Satakumbha, Sarayu, and Gandaki, Charmangwati, Mahi, Medha, and Medhatihti. The three, Tamravati, Vetravati, and Kausiki, Tamasa, Narmada, and Godavari, Vena, Upavena, Vima, and Badava, O Vaharata, Vaharati, Suprayoga, Kaveri, and Murmura, Tungavena, Krishnavena, Kapila, and Sona. These rivers are said to be the mothers of the fires. The Adbhuta Agni had a wife called Priya, and Bibhu was the eldest of his sons by her. There are as many kinds of Somayagnas as the number of fires. All these rise of fires, firstborn of the spirit of Brahma, also sprang from Atri. Atri conceived them as his sons, in his own mind, out of desire, out of Adi's art and John's creation. By this act, the Agnis emerged from his Brahmic body. I have told you the story of the origin of these fires. They are great, glorious, and unrivaled in power. They are the dispellers of darkness. The powers of these fires are equals to that of the Adbhuta, as the Vedas tell us, because all these fires are one and what the fuck are you talking about? Um, the power of these fires are equal to that of the Adbhuta, as the Vedas tell us. Because all these fires are one and the same, the adored and exalted being, the first Agni, must be thought of as the unity of all fires, because, like the Yoshi, what? Yo, Yotistoma Yagna, he issued from Angirasa's body in myriad forms. This that I have narrated to you is the story of the great race of Agni who, when worshipped with various hymns, carries the offerings of all creatures to the gods. I see. I see. So that's What is this? Canto 221? Just now? Yeah. What a good plot twist, I guess. Yeah. All these fires are one and the same. So good, brother. So easy to understand. Thank you for making it so easy. It's. What's the message then? Actually, we have to ask ourselves, what the fuck are we talking about then? If we're going to say, yeah, all of these fires and whatnot, what is the idea trying to be conveyed at us? The identification of the modes in which everything is made by fire and goes back to fire, I guess, in a certain way, let's say it like this. Also, it tries to converse without directly addressing it, because in itself it's way too complicated, not for us to talk about, but rather for them to also dwell on that. The way in which everything has a relation with fire. Everything starts by an initial moving flame and is ended by an ever consuming final flame that will engulf the entirety of existence, so to speak, and restart the universe once more. All of that is still, no matter what kind of way we are trying to say it, fire. And modes of understanding talking about fire. So, understandable thus far. Now, no, yeah, I don't think I have that many other things to particularly point out. I only have one thing to talk about. I think it was incredibly weird to see that. I have like an incredibly interesting question that I know we cannot answer, but leaving his material body, he entered the bowels of the earth, and wherever he met the earth, he created different metals. Energy emanated from him. Earthly perfumes were created from his pus. The deodar, the cedar sprang from his bones. Glass emerged from his phlegm. The emerald came from his bile. And this is the only thing that matters. And iron from his liver. How the fuck did these people associate iron and liver so rapidly? Where did that come from, brother? Have we always known about the relationship between liver, the liver and iron? And in terms of, I guess, dietary explanations, the lack of iron and whatnot, and the overproduction of iron or incapacity to absorb iron, all of those things. Why did they talk about liver in this case? Is it such? We can leave it at, oh well, yeah, this is just another one of those many coincidences that happen throughout the things that one reads. It's like, okay, there is this explanation here, then later on you might find that, I don't know, the liver created gold instead of iron, exactly. So, wow, there was another possible theory being presented, and that one didn't win. The one that won was this one. This method of shooting many possible explanations to see which one sticks. But that is incredibly lazy as an explanation in itself. If I have to assume, can I actually assume anything from this? I don't really get how they were capable of saying that the liver was what produced iron. I guess their association, yeah, their affiliation with fire in itself probably allowed the Hindus to realize that there was a correlation between fire, liver, and iron in the way in which bodies decompose when they are exposed to fire. That's why they are capable of talking about things. Even if this text is incredibly old, I assume that's a sort of explanation. But We don't even have any kind of evidence. I am just making shit up to try to explain something that is surprisingly well placed. And once again, that is it's not even a main sentence. It's the final bit of one bigger sentence. Not even a whole paragraph. One sentence within a paragraph that has like 6, 7 sentences. So I don't know. It's interesting. Ah, but it's fine. Anyways, that was what I was truly interested in highlighting. Everything else, as I have said. I don't know, brother. I wouldn't truly worry about it too much. We don't. I guess to some degree, as always, we're offered different interpretations. We're offered the possibility of trying to explain and extract from what we are seeing any conclusion. And what comes to be also is the happy realization that, luckily enough, when we are not directly in conversation with what is being the content, we can fucking skip it. This same thing happens here. No need to actually dwell on what this means or whatever. Next. Canto 222. Wait, before doing that, let me drink water also. Thank you very much. Okay, continue. Yeah. Continue. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. Seamless scion of the Kurus, I have given you a detailed story of the many branches of the Agni clan. And I will now tell you the story of the birth of the Kartikeya of the great intelligence. I will tell you about that wonderful and illustrious the husband, the son of the Adbhuta Agni, born to the wives of the Brahmarishis. In ancient times, the Devas and Asuras were always at war, and the terrible demons always defeated the gods. Indra saw how the Asuras decimated his armies and made up his mind to identify a leader for the armies of Devaloka. He thought to himself, I must find a powerful one who can rally and lead Swarga's army that has been devastated by the Danavas. He went to the Manasa Mountains and was as absorbed in thought when he heard the heart-rending cries of a woman who said, May someone come and save me by finding me a husband, or let him be my husband himself. Purandara said to her, Have no fear, Devi, and at once he saw a Kesin and a Shura wearing a crown and holding a mace in his hand. Standing by her, and her hand in his rough grip, and he looked like a distant hill clad in metallic armor. Indra addressed the Ashura, saying, Why do you behave so insolently toward this lady? Beware to tempt the god who wields the thunderbolt. Desist from doing her any violence. Kissing replied, You leave her alone, Sakra. I want her for myself. Do you really think, O slayer of Baka, that you will return home alive today? And he hurled his mace at Indra. Basava dissected it in flight with his thunderbolt. Guessing furious, flung a huge rock at him, which he of the 100 sacrifices shattered with his Bahara. A large piece of the rock fell on Kessin, and grievously injured, he fled, leaving the woman. When the Ashura had gone, Indra said to the woman, Who are you, and whose wife are you, beautiful one? What brings you here? What? That's it? That's Canto 222? Wow, so good. Anyways, I don't, I can't truly know. Yeah, in some cases it becomes self-evident what we are talking about. I don't even know who is this illustrious Tehasmin. Kartikeya. I am pretty sure we already talked about him from one of the many files, so I will not worry about that. But I guess, yeah. Anyways, let's just keep reading in that sense. Any other message? I don't think so. This is more than anything else. This is just that setup. You want the explanation for what we're reading. This is just a setup to explain later on any other mythological event. Not something with true depthness to it. So yeah, continuing. Canto 223. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. The woman replied, I am a daughter of Prabhupati Brahma, lord of all creatures, and my name is Devasena. My sister, Daityasena, has been ravished by Kesin. We sisters would both take our father's permission and come regularly with our sakhis to these Manasa mountains. The Shurakesin used to guard us every day. My sister Daityasena succumbed to him. But I did not. He took her away, but you have rescued me with your might. Now, Lord of the Devas, I wanted to find an invincible husband for me. Indra replied, You are my cousin. Your mother and my mother, Dakshayani, are sisters. Tell me about your strengths. The woman replied, Mahabahu, I am a Vala, weak, and so my husband must be powerful. The strength of my father's bones will ensure that the Devas and Asuras will respect him. Indra said, Faultless creature, tell me, what sort of power do you want your husband to have? The Devi said, My husband must be a manly and celebrated one, who is devoted to Brahma and who is able to conquer all the Devas, Asuras, Yakshas, Kinnaras, Suragas, Rakshasas, and evil deities, and subdue all the worlds with you. Markandeya continues. Indra was troubled when he heard this, and he thought, There is no one who fits this description to be this woman's husband. Just then, Indra, resplendent as the sun, saw Suryadeva rising on the Udaya mountain and radiant Somadeva merging into him. It was the day of the new moon, and the inauspicious moment of Raudra. He of the 100 sacrifices, Satakaratu, saw the Asuras and Devas battling for dominance on the Udaya mountain. He noticed that the dawn was tinged with red clouds, and saw that Varuna's oceanic abode had turned the hue of blood. He saw Agni entering the orb of the sun, conveying the oblations that Varegu, Angirasa, and others had offered to the accompaniment of hymns. He also saw the 24 Paravas, the hours turning Suryadeva, and the fearsome Soma also present in the sun. Sakara looked at the awesome union of the sun and the moon, and he thought, This terrible conjunction of Soma and Surya forebodes a fearful battle tomorrow. The river Sindhu flows with fresh blood, and the red-faced Sakals drink her waters and howl to the sun. This conjunction of sun, moon, and Agni is a dreadful and powerful, as it is wonderful. No, wondrous. If someone gives birth to a son now, that child can become a suitable husband for this woman. Agni has a lineage similar to Soma's, and he too is a Deva. If these two have a son together, that boy can surely become this woman's husband. Thinking thus, Indra took Devasena with him and went to Brahma. He greeted the Pitamaha and said to him, Find an illustrious warrior to be this woman's husband. Brahma replied, Dhanavasudana, slave of the Navas, it shall be as you wish. The children born of such a marriage will be mighty and ever victorious. Her husband will be joint leader of your forces with you. Indra and Devasena bowed to Brahma and went then to where those great Brahmanas, the powerful Devarishis, Vasistha and the others lived. Other Devas followed Indra to the Rishis Asaramas, where they were conducting their yajnas. They have a share of the Soma rasa that will be offered. To have a share of the Soma rasa that will be offered. Those exalted Maharishis performed the yajna with towering fires and offered the burnt offerings to the gods. They invoked Adhuta, the Agni that carries the Hadis, with mantras. That great fire emerged from the sun and silently appeared at the yajna. Bharatutama, Atkuta entered the sacrificial flames that the rishis had lit, and into which they had poured various offerings to the chanting of hymns, and he took these offerings to the to, and he took these offerings to the Swargavasis, the dwellers of heaven. On his return, he saw the wives of those Devarishis sleeping peacefully on their beds. These finest of women had skins that shone like altars of gold, and the blemishless radiance of moonbeams. They sparkled like fiery stars. Adbhuta looked at the wives of the illustrious Brahmanas with lustful eyes. His mind became agitated, and their beauty stabbed him with desire. Considering it improper for him to be in such turmoil, he quieted his heart, shame to himself. The wives of these great Brahmanas are chaste and faithful, and beyond the reach of other men's desires. I long to possess them, but since I cannot look at them in this way or touch them, I will become their household fire, Rikapatya, and gratify myself by being able to see them every day. Markandeya continues. Adbhuta transformed himself into a household fire, and was glad indeed, seeing those gold-complexioned women and touching them with his flames. Enthralled with their beauty, he lived there for a long time, filled with intense love for them and giving them his heart. Eventually, unable to win the hearts of those Brahmanastris, his own heart tortured by love, he made his way to a forest with the intention of killing himself. Just before this, Swaha, the daughter of Daksha, had lost her heart to him, and she waited to catch him in a weak moment. She could not find anything in the cool and apparently passionless agony. But now that the god had gone into the forest, tormented by pangs of love, she thought, I'm in an anguish of love. I will assume the guise of the wives of the Saptarishis and, in that guise, go to the fire god who is so smitten with their charms. He will be gratified, and my desire, too, will be slaked, says Markandeya. Canto 223? 22? 23, yeah. Hmm. I think, yeah, this one has much more text, so it has much more understandable things in terms of, yeah, this gets to describe stuff. Once again, still, it is utterly metaphorical. I tend to forget that, yeah, this book is, I guess, 90% allegories or such, so it actually needs to be interpreted. It isn't just, oh, yeah, we're gonna be reading it and it is going to say, yeah, killing is bad. So it's a little bit harder. But what else? I think that one, yeah, the only interesting concept in itself is the discussion about Adhuta transforming himself into a household fire, whatever the fuck that is. But yeah, in itself, I guess the most important event is how we get to properly appreciate this. What we were talking about before, how people seem to be not people, how this narration seems to focus around the fires, the role that they have in society, and whatnot. Ah, yeah, there is a question. We're talking about the devas, and even they perform s- rituals with sacrificial fires to the gods. Which gods, brother? It it was said so easily. Oh yeah, the devas are performing rituals to the gods. Who are the gods? If not the devas, the gods that the devas admire. Who are those, brother? Anyways, I guess uh, bad question. Impossible to answer a question. But anyways, let's continue a little bit more, I guess. Let me see. I okay. Let's let's do it like this. Let's finish 224 and probably after that take like a I don't know exactly how to say break. I don't want to actually just fucking disappear for 5 minutes. It might be the best option actually to do that to you know to take a certain proper leave to gain back a little bit the audacity is the proper term. I wouldn't say that. The capacity to keep on reading and such. It just takes a little bit of time. And otherwise, if we are doing this completely wasted of energy, we don't get to extract anything. So yeah, after the next canto 224, a break of like, I wouldn't say 5 minutes, but something along those lines. Also, yeah, I guess, anyways, let's write this. Canto 224. Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. Lord of men, the beautiful Shiva was the wife of Angirasa, one of the Saptarishis, and she had a virtuous, unblemished character. Swaha disguised herself as Shiva and went to Agni and said, Agni, I am tortured with the love for you. You must satisfy my passion. If you do not, I will kill myself. I am Siba, the wife of Angirasa, and I have come here on the advice of the wives of the other races who have sent me to you after much thought. Agni replied, How did you know that I was suffering with love? And how could the others, developed wives of the seven races, know this? Swaha replied, You're a favorite with us, but we are in awe of you. The other wives guessed what was in your heart and sent me to you. I have come here to satisfy my desire. Make me happy quickly. My sisters-in-law are waiting for me to return. Markandeya continues. Filled with delight, Agni and the disguised Swaha made rapturous love together. While having intercourse, she got and held some of his seed in her hand. To avoid bringing disgrace to the Brahmana woman and Agni if she was seen in that disguise while she walked back through the forest, she turned herself into a bird and flew through the forest. She came to Sweta, the white mountain. Here to land was recovered here the land was covered with grass, shrubs, plants, and trees, and the mountain was guarded by strange seven-headed, venomous serpents. There were rakshasas, male and female pisaches, dreadful spirits, and all kinds of birds and animals. Swaha quickly climbed a peak and dropped Agni's seed into a golden lake. After this, she took the form of each of the wives of the illustrious Saptarishis, one by one, and had intercourse with Agni. The only one she could not disguise herself as was Arundhati, whose devotion to her husband, Vasista, protected her. O Kurustama! On days of the new moon, the Devi Swaha cast Agni's semen 6 times into the golden lake, and a boy child of great prowess was born from it. Because the rishis considered him as cast off, this baby was named Skanda. The child had 6 faces, 12 ears, eyes, hands, and feet, one neck, and one stomach. On the second day after the semen was thrown into the water, it took the form of a baby. He grew into a boy on the third, and Skanda's limbs developed on the fourth day. Red clouds flashed with lightning over the lake, and the boy shone like the sun rising in the midst of a mass of red clouds. He grasped the wonderful, immense bow that Shiva, destroyer of the Tripura, used to destroy the enemies of the Devas. And that mighty being uttered such a terrible roar that the 3 worlds, with their animate and inanimate beings, were struck with terror. The great Nagas, Chitra and Airavata, heard a sound that was like the thundering of masked thunderheads, and trembled with fear. Seeing how distraught they were, the radiant, sun-like boy held them in 2 of his hands. In one hand he held a spear, and in another a sturdy, red-crested rooster. And with this the mighty armed son of Agni roamed noisily, holding a beautiful conch in two of his hands, that a mighty one blew on it, terrorizing even the most powerful creatures. He swatted the air with two hands and played on the hilltop, and Mahasena, of unmatched prowess, looked as if he was about to devour the three worlds. He shone like Surya at his zenith on the sky. This wonderful, incomparably strong being sat on the top of the mountain and, with each of his many faces pointing in different directions, roared again and again. All kinds of creatures heard those roars and fell to the ground in fear, and, terrified, they begged for protection. All those of different castes who asked this great god for refuge and who followed him became Brahmanas. The god rose from his seat and reassured all of them. Then he drew his bow and shot his arrows in the direction of the White Mountain. The arrows split Crown Jahil, the son of Himavat, in two, making the swans and vultures that lived there fly away to the Sumeru Mountains. Sorely wounded, the crown Shah fell, groaning fearfully in agony. Seeing him fall, the other hills began to scream, and that mighty being of unrivaled prowess heard the groans of the wounded hills, but was unmoved. Instead, he lifted his mace and, with a war cry, hurled the lustrous weapon at the white mountain and cleaved one of its peaks. The sweater, pierced by him, became frightened and, with other mountains, uprooted himself from the earth and fled. The wounded earth gaped, bereft of her ornaments, and, in her distress, went to Skanda, who granted that the mountains may return without fear. Once more, Bhumi Devi shone in splendor, and the mountains bowed to Skanda and returned to take their old places. Since then, all creatures celebrate the worship of Skanda on the fifth day of the lunar month. That's Canto 224. I'm actually starting to feel tired and understand what the fuck is the message here. Uh, who is Skanda? I'm pretty sure it's like the first time that I hear about Skanda through all of what we have been reading. It also kinda threw me off quite a lot, but anyways, we are done with this canto, and we still have more to read. So let me see. I assume that probably taking into consideration how things are going and what not, we can try to go to like 230 today. But yeah, let me actually take it like a short break. I wouldn't say a 5 minute break. Let me let me do this. Let me pull this up. No, wait, this one. Okay, I have that here. I have the scene. Let me try to actually create a new timer. I have one, but I haven't truly made one that works in a while. So let me scripts advanced timer. Yeah, text is timer 2. Thank you. Text is timer 2. Here we are. Okay. This is not 0. No. 300. 300. 300 is like 5 minutes. So let me do that. Okay. There we are. What? Why did it not transition? I clicked transition. Why did it not work? Anyways, there we are. Timer running. 5 minutes of a break, and after that we continue. Thank you. I almost forgot to unmute actually. Anyways, here we are. It, it hasn't been 5 minutes, but I don't care. I cannot wait 5 minutes. Also, uh, I don't want to actually wait 5 minutes or so. There we are. What's up? We are back. Welcome back. So, continuing with this, we are on Canto 225. Ah, it was a short enough break, more than anything else, to really stand up and such. So, we, I kind of said it so easily. It was like, yeah, I'm going to instantly be healed out of all the other ailment statuses, but maybe not, brother. Maybe not so easily, not so rapidly, not so correctly. So, anyways, let's try to finish reading the Canto 225. At least that we can do now. So, Canto, I already said like 5 times, but anyways, Canto 225, Markandeya Samasya Parva continued. Markandeya continues. When great Skanda was born of all kinds of strange phenomena, sorry, when great Skanda was born, all kinds of strange phenomena were seen. There was an uncanny reversal in nature of male and female, of hot and cold, and of other pairs of opposites. The planets, the cardinal points, and the sky shone with light, and the earth began to rumble. The rishis, always working for the world's welfare, saw these signs and were worried. Anxiously, they began to restore equilibrium. Those who live in the Chitra Raja Bana were convinced that the unnatural conditions were the consequence of Agni's intercourse with the 6 wives of the Saptarishis. Others, who had seen the goddess as a bird, said that evils were the work of the bird. No one imagined that Swaha was the author of that mischief. Swaha heard that the child was hers, and she went to Skanda and told him that she was his mother. The 7 rishis heard that the son of great power had been born to them, and they abandoned their wives, except the adored Arundhati, because all the forest dwellers said that these 6 women had been instrumental in the birth of the child. O king, Swaha protested that this was not so, and tried repeatedly to convince the 7 races that the child was hers and not their wives. Earlier, when the 7 races had concluded their yagnas, the great sage Biswamitra had followed the god of fire, unknown to him, and had seen how he had been ruled by lust. So he knew everything, just as it had happened, and he was the first to seek the protection of Skanda Mahasena. He offered divine prayers to Mahasena and performed all the 13 rites of passage, such as the Hatakarma. For him, for the good of the world, he proclaimed verses of the 6-headed Skanda and performed ceremonies in honor of the rooster, the Devi Shakti and Skanda's first followers. For this reason, Viswamitra became a great favorite of the divine youth. Viswamitra told the 7 rishis how Swaha had transformed herself and declared the innocence of their wives. Nonetheless, the rishis abandoned their spouses unconditionally. Markandeya continues. The devas heard of Skanda's might and said to Basava, "O Sakra, Skanda's prowess is unbearable. You must kill him immediately. If you do not, he will conquer the 3 worlds and us. He will overpower you and make himself king of the devas." Sakra said to them, "This child is endowed with much prowess. He can defeat the Creator himself in battle. I dare not fight him." The Devas said, "You are cowardly, Sakra. Let the mortars of the universe go to Skanda. They can summon endless Shakti at will. Let them kill this terrible child." The mortars agreed and left, but when they saw the incomparable boy, they were disheartened. Convinced that he was invincible, they asked for his protection. "Mighty one, become our son. We love you and want to suckle you. See how the milk flows from our breasts." Hearing this, Mahasen Skanda wanted to feed at their breasts and, receiving them with respect, drunk. Then he saw his father Agni coming towards him, along with his mother's. Skanda honored him, who is the door. What? Door. Doer of all that is good. And Agni Deva and the mothers remained by their son's side to look after him. The Devi who, amongst the Matrikas, was born of anger, watched over Skanda with the spear in her hand, just as a mother would guard her own child, and that moody, red-hued daughter of the sea who lived on blood hooked Mahasena to her breast and nourished him tenderly as a mother would. Agni transformed himself into a goat-faced teacher of the Vedas and, followed by many children, delighted his son with marvelous toys. Enter a mountain come, says Markandeya. I think, yeah, I wasn't really getting anything before. I wasn't really capable of having any conclusion, more correctly to say, but I assume that it slowly makes a little bit more sense. What we can also analyze here is, in a certain degree, how this. I don't know exactly if it is proper to say it as the reality. What I perceive, more to say is, it seems very obvious this maternal and paternal instinct that gets to overcome the parents. This idea of, oh yeah, a children is a children nonetheless, even if it does bad things. You are moved by your consciousness and by your capacity to recognize that a children is one of the most sacred things on the world, so you don't worry so much, blah 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 blah. Blah. All of that stuff happens here, and that is one of the main reasons as to why the mothers who should otherwise have killed quote unquote their son, which also is not true. It's in that sense it's also complicated. It is their son, supposedly. It isn't really their son. It isn't really the son of anyone, because how does that even happen? That's something that I don't get to understand. It was somebody who was utilizing one of the many magical attributes that the devas possess to shapeshift into different persons, and she wasn't even yeah, in the intercourse she wasn't even getting the the, the seed herself. She was grabbing it. So this boy appeared in a lake. uh, it's complicated, yes, but yeah, I cannot really explain why exactly. There are two events that I cannot fully make sense of so far. First, are the husbands left their wives for some random reason. They were already even given proof that their wives did not commit the sin of, oh wow, yeah, they, they had intercourse with another man. They have defiled the honor of the sacred union that is marriage and whatnot. Yeah, okay, that didn't happen. Why did they leave them anyways then? That is an answer, first thing. And second thing, why did the mothers, why did the woman, not mothers, they are not their mother, none of them, besides the only, I guess the only woman who isn't there so far, are their mother. Why did they instantly switch into that position? Once again, we got to talk a little bit about, yeah, we can actually see that this skill, it gave Rose that sensation in the elder people, in the older people, of, oh wow, yeah, poor kid, he doesn't deserve to be mistreated, even if it is something very evil. You cannot kill a baby just because it might not be the best thing for the world. So they started to treat him. But I don't know. I guess, yeah, yeah. That's what I was writing, sort of, that to some degree these are also divine beings, not human beings. So they follow a lot more karma, dharma, and whatnot, as in the things that are correct morally, logically, and whatnot correct. So, if it is correct for them to actually take care of a child, to give them figures who can actually lead the child into a proper good state, they will do so, even if they unavoidably are not in any way related to him. It's the proper thing to do, therefore they do that. That's the explanation that I wasn't capable of getting out before, I guess. Yeah. It was implicit, I assume. I wasn't really paying attention, sorry. But anyways, that's... I still cannot understand the other one. No matter what, I cannot understand the... Oh, yeah, yeah. The husbands left their wives. Why? Because they... What's the explanation in this case? Because they heard something that was later on proved to be wrong. But they heard something that they needed to act on. Anyways, continuing. Canto 226. Markandeya's Samasya Parva continue. Markandeya continues. The planets with their satellites, the rishis and the matrikas, Agni and numerous other valiant courtiers, and many other fearsome looking Swargavasis waited on Mahasena, along with his mothers. Indra, lord of the gods, wanted to vanquish Skanda. But, being unsure of victory, he mounted his elephant Airavata and, accompanied by the other devas, he advanced cautiously towards Skanda. The mighty Indra, followed by all the devas and armed with his Vajra, wanted to kill Mahasena. He marched with the splendid celestial army, flying a variety of standards and sounding a shrill war cry. The warriors wore armor of different kinds. They were armed with bows and rode many different mounts. When Mahasena saw the gloriously decked Sakra, wearing his best raiment, coming to kill him, he went forward to meet the king of the Devas. Oh, Ganteya! The mighty Vasava shouted to exhort his warriors. He now rode swiftly with his forces. Death to Agni saw no his mind. All these to the praises of the Tridasas and the great rishis. At last he reached the home of Kartikeya, and he and the other gods shouted out to him. In response, Guha roared deeply like the roaring of the sea. On hearing that sound, the Deva army became agitated like a churning ocean and stood stunned and rooted. The son of the fire god saw the devas coming to kill him and was filled with rage. He breathed flames from his mouth onto the celestial legions, leaving them writhing on the ground. Their heads, their bodies, their arms, and the animals they rode were all consumed by that fiery breath. Flaring briefly like stars, removed from their proper places, the gods abandoned Indra and took refuge with Skanda instead, and the peace was restored. Forsaken by his devas, Sakra hurled his thunderbolt at Skanda. It pierced him in his right side, Rahan, and passed through his body, from where the Vajra stuck. There sprang from Skanda's body another being, a youth with a club in his hand and adorned with a divine amulet. Because he was born from the piercing of the thunderbolt, he was named Visakha. When Indra saw that another being, as fierce as the god of fire, had been created, he was afraid, and, with his hands joined together in worship, asked Skanda for refuge. Skanda told him to cast off his fear, and all the gods were joyful. Who is Skanda? Why is the first time that I hear about Skanda now? Uh, anyways, does Skanda die at some point and no one ever again mentioned him besides this one story? This seems like a major important character. Why did I never before in my entire life hear about Skanda? Also, though, thing to the note here, there are like 20 different names for every single deity, so it's very funny to see that. Um, what what's the name? What's the name that this guy has? It is Skanda. Yeah. Uh, Sakra? No. S- Basava? Mahasena? He has like three, four, five different names in just one canto. So I maybe he gets renamed to who is it? The Atman? One of those mature figures? He cannot be. I think it is Brahma. He cannot be Brahma. Brahma has already been mentioned, right? So I assume it isn't Brahma. Anyways, we're just in mythology. I don't think. Is there a possible explanation for why a god appeared from one of the scars that this guy had? I don't even know who Skanda is to be capable of assuming properly anything. But anyways, continuing. Canto 227. Markandeya Samasya Parva continue. Markandeya continues. Now hear about those macabre and grotesque followers of Skanda. Skanda gave birth to a number of male progeny when Indra's thunderbolt struck him. Horrific creatures that spirited away little children. Whether born or still in their mother's womb, Skanda had a great many incredibly strong daughters too. These children adopted Bis- Bisakha as their father. The agile, goat-faced, had them. Brother, Hadra Sakha, Hadra Sakha. Okay, let me try it. The English. The agile, goat-faced Bahadrasakha was surrounded by all his sons. Ah, they sang with another name. But all his sons and daughters, whom he protected carefully, along with their mothers. It is this quality of his that earned Skanda the name Kumarapitra, or father of children. Those who want to have a son worship Rudra in his form of Agni and Duma in her form of Swaha. This ensures the birth of a son to them. The daughters who were born to Tapa, also named Hutasana, went to Skanda, who asked what he could do for them. Those girls replied, "Bless us so that we may become good and respected mothers of the world." The generous one replied, "That us too, so be it," and repeatedly said, "You shall be divided into Shivas and Asivas, good and evil." The mothers lived after establishing Skanda as their son. There were seven mothers: Kaki, Kamila, Malini, Berehata, Arya, Palala, and Baimitra, who gave birth to Sisu through Skanda's blessings. Sisu was red-eyed, fearful looking, and volatile. He is known as the eighth hero born of the mothers of Skanda, but he is sometimes considered a ninth when the goat-faced is counted as one. Skanda's sixth phase was that of a goat. That phase, O king, is in the middle of the six, and his mother looks at it constantly. That head by which Baharadrashak, man, Bahadrasakha created divine energy is meant to be the best of all his heads, Rahan. This great and wonderful event occurred on the fifth day of the bright half of the lunar month, and on the sixth, a fierce and terrific battle was fought in the same place. Okay, note. There are many stories out there of Skanda. One of the most popular is that he was born to kill Tarakasura, who had a boon that only a son born to Shiva, who has lost Sati and not yet married Parvati, could kill him. So the Devas persuade Sati to be born as Himavan's daughter. And so triumphy, completely understandable. Um, I guess so. That's Canto 227. It, it sort of became, I guess, just I'm incredibly lost. I don't really get to understand who Skanda even is. I like that. Oh yeah, there are many stories about the birth of Skanda. Can you explain to me who he is instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, yeah"? We also don't know who this figure is, or can you actually say it? I have to assume. I have to assume that there are many stories. Therefore, we cannot talk about it properly. Give me concreteness. Anyways, I shouldn't be getting angry. The point is, Skanda's story so good. Wow. Let's get over this, I guess. I don't know. I assume next it said there is a battle coming, so is he going to die now? Or what's going to happen to Skanda? What a great character. Anyways, Canto 228. Markandeya Samasya Parva continue. Markandeya continues. Skanda was adorned with a golden amulet and gorget. His forelock and crown were of gold. His eyes were golden hued. His teeth were sharp, and he wore a red garment. He was handsome and could the most splendid of figure. Endowed with all the noblest qualities, he was the favorite of the three worlds. He granted boons to anyone who asked. He was brave, youthful, and wore bright earrings. One day, when he was resting, the goddess of wealth, Sri, looking like a lotus and taking a human form, came to him and gave herself to him. On possessing the Devi, the slender Skanda glowed with the beauty of the full moon. Exalted Brahmanas worshipped him, and Maharishi said, "O you born of the golden seed, may you prosper, and may you be the instrument of the welfare of the universe. Devotama, best of gods, although you were born only 6 days ago, the universe has already come under your dominion, and you have removed its fear. Therefore, you have become the Indra of the three worlds, and they have no cause to be afraid anymore." Skanda replied, "Mighty Tapasvins." No, which one was it? Mighty Tapasvins. What does Indra do with the three worlds? How does the king of the Devas constantly protect all the other gods? The rishis replied, "Indra is the giver of strength, power, children, and happiness to all creatures, and when propitiated, bestows his devotees with all they wish for. He destroys the wicked and fulfills the desires of the righteous. The slayer of Bala loads the Svadharma to all creatures. He acts as sun and moon in places where they are absent, and when the occasion demands it, he even assumes the roles of fire, air, earth, and water. These are Indra's tasks, and great are his capabilities. You too are mighty. Therefore, Sreshta, Great One, become more Indra." Sakra said to Skanda, "Mighty One, make us glad by becoming our king. You are worthy of that honor, and we will anoint you today." Skanda replied, "You must continue to rule over the three worlds with equanimity." Skanda, "And with your heart set on conquest. I will remain your humble servant. I do not want sovereignty." Sakara replied, "Your prowess is unrivaled, O heroic one. Defeat the enemies of the Devas. People are wonderstruck by your strength, especially since you vanquished me and stripped me of my power. If I were to be Indra now, I will not command the respect of all creatures, and they will split their loyalties between us, and causing dissent. When they have formed themselves into two factions, they will have war between them. And in that war, you will undoubtedly defeat me easily and become the lord of all worlds." Skanda said, "Sakra, you're my lord, as well as lord of the three worlds. May you prosper. Command me, and I will obey." Indra replied, "At your behest, I will continue as Indra. If your purpose is true and what you said is in earnest, I will tell you how you can fulfill your wish to serve me. Mighty One, be the Senapati of the armies of Devaloka." Skanda replied, "Install me as Senapati for the demolition of the Danavas, the welfare of the Devas, and for the well-being of Brahmanas and sacred cows." Markandeya continues. Skanda was anointed by Indra and all the other devas. The Maharishis honored him, and he looked splendid. The golden parasol that was held over his head looked like a halo of fire. The lustrous Indra, the conqueror of the three worlds, fastened the celestial garland of gold created by Viswakaraman around his neck. "Conqueror of your enemies, Mahadeva Brishatwaha, the one with the emblem of the bull, arrived with his consort, Parvati, an honored Skanda with a jubilant heart. The fire god is also called Rudra, and therefore Skanda is called the son of Rudra. The White Mountain was formed from Rudra's semen, and the sexual indulgences of the fire god with the Kritikas took place on that same Sweta Parvata. All the dwellers of heaven saw Rudra heaping honors on Skanda. For these reasons, he was known as the son of Rudra. The child Skanda was born by Rudra entering into the being of the fire god, and this is also why Skanda is known as the son of Rudra. And Mahabharata, because Skanda was born of the union between Rudra and Swaha and the six wives of the seven rishis, he is known as the son of Rudra. The son of Agni was clad in red clothes and looked resplendent, like the sun emerging from behind a mass of red clouds. The fire god assigned the red rooster as his mascot, and birds on the top of chariots. It blazed like the fire of the Pralaya. His vanguard was the embodiment of the power that is invested in the Devas to give them victory, which is the impetus of all creatures, and which is their glory, their support and their refuge. A mysterious enchantment entered into his very being, whose prowess is manifested in battle. Beauty, righteousness, strength, vigor, might, radiance, truthfulness, rectitude, devotion to Brahmanas, freedom from illusion, absence of perplexity, protection of his followers, destruction of his foes, and care of all creatures. These, great lord, are the intrinsic qualities of Skanda. Anointed by all the gods, he looked pleased and contented. Grandly attired, he was as beautiful as the radiant full moon. The sacred incantation of Vedic hymns, the music of the celestial musicians of the songs of the Devas and Gandharvas filled the air. The son of Agni, surrounded by Apsaras, many soulful visages and hosts of gods, shone in splendor. Mahasena, anointed as Senapati of the Devas, looked like the sun rising to extinguish darkness. The forces of Swarga, looking upon him as their leader, surrounded him in their thousands. All creatures followed him in adulation, eager to obey his commands, praising and worshipping him. He responded with encouraging words. The performer of 1,000 sacrifices then remembered Devasena, whom he had rescued earlier, and, considering Skandas destined by Brahma himself to be the husband of this Devi, summoned her to come there, wearing her best ornaments. Indra said to Skanda, Best of gods, even before you were born, Brahma ordained that this Devi was to be your bride. Accept her lotus-like right hand with the invocation of the marriage mantras. Accordingly, Skanda married Devasena, and the learned Brihaspati performed the necessary prayers and oblations. She, who is named Shasti, Lakshmi, Asha, Sakhuprada, Sinivali, Kuhu, Sadavriti, and Aparahita, is Devasena, the wife of Skanda. Then Skanda was united with Devasena by the indissoluble bonds of matrimony, and the goddess of prosperity faithfully served him, embodied in her own form. Because Skanda's anointing occurred on the fifth day of the moon, that day is called Seripanchami, the auspicious fifth day, and because he obtained his goal on the sixth day, that lunar day is considered to be entirely auspicious. So, ah, that's. I don't fucking know which canto are we in even at this point. 227, I think? 26, probably, if not. 28, anyways. Wow. It, I kinda understand who Skanda is at the same time. I don't. Wait, there was one possibility that I was sort of ignoring. Am I reading about a ghost that they were making up when they were talking about the Mahabharata in itself? It's like one of those many. That's something funny that happens. There are stories that create gods. Let's make them up. And sometimes we forget that those things exist. And in stuff like the Bible, for example, it's easy to say, "Oh yeah, this text is not." I don't remember the exact word. Not canon. That's it. That's it. It stops being canon. It stops being taken as canonical content. So that's why, to some degree, we can find ourselves talking about this stuff and say, "Oh yeah, no, you know what? This thing is not canon anymore." We're talking about a god that is not canon in the actual Hinduistic traditions and the different modes of appreciating the gods and whatnot. That's maybe also why this Skanda guy isn't named anywhere as a god, because he seems to be utterly important here. After all, that was something funny. He is an equal to Indra, who is not just Indra. What's his other name? What's the other name that they just used? Uh, no, yeah, it is actually Indra, the proper name, right? Indra or what is it? What they were literally just begging him to be the guy who, yeah, Indra. Indra is the main god. So you have Indra, then you have Skanda, who isn't Indra, but is as equally. I think it's even more powerful that Indra, take into consideration that the actual Indra cannot defeat him. So I guess, yeah, it truly gets me curious how what happened to this guy that we never talk about him anywhere else. Did he change his name? But at the same time, anyways, it's I'm not going to lie, it gets overly complicated to try to analyze this when we have to start taking into consideration the 20 different name changes that all of these deities have. That it isn't named Indra, it isn't named Agni, it isn't named Skanda, Sakari, Sahadeva. Dear God, give me just one name and stick to it. Anyways, let me see. I want to actually see what are we going to be reading. Why is this so long, whatever? Anyways, it's incredibly long. I cannot skim that much information. Thank you. So, let me drink water. Let me do that actually. I guess what I want to see. I don't know. I'm not actually getting anywhere with this. So, on one hand, it's not all that useful to continue reading. On the other one, it's kind of impossible to get anything out of it in general. There is this new random character that was never before talked about, and on a third degree, it's useful to continue reading so that we can finalize this arc, this story, this narration about this Skanda person, so or this Skanda deity. So, anyways, continuing. Canto 229. Markandeya Samasya Parva continue. Markandeya continues. The 6 wives of the Saptarishis went to Skanda's abode as soon as they heard about his good fortune and that he had been made general of the celestial armies. This virtuous woman of great punya had been disowned by the rishis, and they lost no time in calling on Mahasena, the Senapati of the divine forces. They said to him, "Son, you have been injustly cast out by our godlike husbands. Some persons spread the rumor that we had given birth to you, and believing this, they were angry and banished us from our rightful places. Now you must redeem us from our disgrace. We want to adopt you as our son and secure eternal bliss. You must do this for us." Skanda replied, "Good devils of unblemished character, I hereby declare that you are my martyrs. I am your son, and you shall attain all that you desire." Markandeya continues. Sakra indicated that he wanted to say something to Skanda, and when Skanda asked what it was, Basava said, Devi Abhivhi. How do you say this? Devi Abhihit, the younger sister of Rohini, was jealous of her elder sister and has gone into the forest to perform tapasya. I cannot find a substitute for my fallen star. Skanda asked Brahma about how we can fill the empty space created by the absence of this nakshatra. Brahma created Dhanishta and the other asterisms, and Rohini used to be one of them, making their number complete. Accordingly, Skanda sent Kritika to a place in the heavens, and there she shines with Agni's grace, as if she has 7 faces. Manata said to Skanda, to me, you are the son who performs the funeral rites. I want to live with you always, my son. Skanda replied, so be it. I honor you as my mother. Guide me with a mother's love, and honored by your daughter-in-law, you shall always live with me. Markandeya continues. The great Matrika said to Skanda, Landmen have described us as the mothers of all creatures. However, what we want really is to be your mothers. Do us the honor of accepting us. Skanda replied, you are all mothers to me, and I am your son. Tell me what I can do to please you. The Matrika said, in days of old, the Devis Brahmi, Maheswari, and others were appointed as universal matters. Sri Shesta, we want them to be removed from that position and for us to have their places. We want to be worshipped in their stead by the world. Restore those children of ours that they made you deprive of us. Skanda said, I cannot take back what I have given away, but I can give you other children, if you wish. The mother said, we want to live with you and we want to be able to assume different shapes and to devour the children of those mothers as well as their guardians. Grant us these. Skanda said, I can grant you progeny, but I am paid by what you ask. May you be prosperous. I honor you, Devis, and promise to protect your children. I leave them in your care. The mothers declare, we shall protect them, Skanda, as you want. May you prosper. Still, we want to live with you, always, mighty one. Skanda said, until human children are 16 years old, you shall be able to afflict them in your various forms. I hereby confer on you a fierce and inexhaustible energy, with which you shall live happily, worshipped by all. And from Skanda's body emerged a powerful, fiery being whose purpose was to devour the children of mortals. This being fell onto the ground, unconscious and hungry. Skanda gave the evil force a horrific form, known by Brahmanotamas as Skandapasmara. Binata takes the form known as Sakunigraha, or evil spirit. She who to learn Brahmanas known as Putana Rakshasi is the evil force Putana. The fierce and hideous Rakshasa is the Visacha form, Sita Putana. That terrible spirit causes abortions in women. Aditi takes the form known as Revati, and her evil spirits is called Raivata. She is a dreadful Graha that afflicts children. Diti, the mother of the deities, is the form called Mukhamandika, and this terrible creature is partial to the flesh of little children. O Guru. Male and female children who are said to have been fathered by Skanda are spirits of evil, and they kill the foetus, fetus, in the womb. They, the Kumaras, are the husbands of these Devis, and the children are caught unawares by these evil spirits. Rahan, the wise say that Surabhi, the co-mother, has the evil spirit Sakuni as her rider, and the two of them together devour children on this earth. Sarama, the dark mother, habitually kills human beings while they are still in the womb. She who is the tree mother, who lives in Karanja tree, grants boons. She has a pleasant face and is always kind to all creatures. They that want to have children bow down to her. These 18 evil spirits are fond of meat and wine and haunt built-in rooms for 10 days. Gadru introduces herself in a Sukshma Rupa into the body of a pregnant woman, and there she destroys the Why is it spelled fetus? Fetus, and makes the mother give birth to a naga instead. The mother of the Gandharvas takes away the fetus, and that is how women have abortions. The mother of the Apsaras removes the fetus from the womb, and such conceptions are said to be stillborn. The daughter of the goddess of blood is said to have nursed Skanda, and she is worshipped as Lohitayani on Kadamba trees. The role of this goddess, Arya, is the same for women as Rudra's is for men. She is the mother of all children and is especially worshipped for their well-being. These that I have described are evil spirits presiding over the destinies of young children, and until children reach their 16th year, these spirits wield their dark powers, but after that, their influence works on the good. All the male and female spirits that I have described are always counted as the spirits of Skanda. One propitiates them with burnt offerings, ablutions, salves, and sacrifices and other offerings, and by worshipping Skanda, O king, when one reverently honors and worships them, they bestow on men whatever is good for them, as well as courage and long life. I bow now to Maheswara. Before I describe the nature of those spirits that affect the destinies of men after they are 16 years old, the man who sees gods, whether while asleep or awake, loses his sanity, and the spirit who is responsible for these hallucinations is called the Devabhuta. When a person sees his dead ancestors while he is seated at ease or lying in his bed, he loses his mind, and the spirit which causes this illusion is called the Sestran or Pitabhuta. The man who shows disrespect to the Siddhas and who scores by them in return soon goes mad. The evil force which makes this happen is called the Siddhabhuta. The spirit which makes a man smell a sweet scent and recognize various states is a tortured spirit called the Rakshasa Bhuta. What? That's bad. Anyways, and that spirit which gives Gandharvas, the minstrels of heaven, the ability to insinuate themselves into the bodies of human beings, is called the Gandharva Bhuta. The evil spirit, in the form of a Pisacha that torments men, is called the Paisacha Bhuta. Pisacha, the Yakshasa spirit that accidentally enters a human being, makes him lose his mind, is known as the Yaksha Bhuta. The man who loses his senses on account of a demoralizing addiction to vices become quickly insane, and his illness must be remedied according to methods prescribed in the Shastras. Men also turn mad from confusion, from irrational fear, and from having seen ghastly sights. The cure for them lies in quieting their minds. There are three classes of spirits. Some are playful, some are greedy, and some sensual. Until men attain the age of 70, these evil spirits have the power to plague them. And after that, fever is the only evil spirit that afflicts them. These evil spirits always avoid those who have subdued their senses, who are self restrained, who have good habits, who are God fearing, and who are free from sloth and the touch of evil. I have now described to you the evil spirits that mold the destinies of men. Rahan, you who are ever devoted to Maheswara are immune to them. That's Canto 229, I think. Let me see. Yeah, 229. So, I finally understand what we're talking about. Sort of, because it's implicit. Sakra? What? Sabka? Skanda. That's his name. Skanda. Skanda comes basically to order the rest of the other phenomena of the world. At some point, it was mentioned here, yeah, this is about phenomena and things that happen. We got to talk about before the things that are directly related to fire, the essence of the world. Okay, Skanda serves to be what explains the more supernatural side of reality. That's his role here. I still don't understand who the fuck Skanda is. I will probably have to read on that myself because it doesn't seem that they are going to be talking about it properly. But yeah, Skanda serves as an apparatus to explain the more supernatural phenomena. And also, I guess, To some degree, Skanda seems to also, I more personal observation, uh, seems to be related to the explanation of stuff along the lines of, oh, wow, yeah, Skanda is what has to deal with the mind. The more, I already said, spiritual, the more unobservable side of reality. Also, the many things that happen that we cannot directly observe as things, but rather the whole, yeah, what I already said, the spirits and whatnot. That's what Skanda provides, or what Skanda starts to enable to understanding. Skanda is just an apparatus that makes everything else also make sense, so to speak. Because Skanda himself doesn't directly inflict any kind of pain, he just allows things to be. That's what makes them painful, sort of. He's also, I guess, in a certain degree, a fair enough God, because he allows those who are. He allows the evil spirits to exist, and they can afflict anyone who is not following karma, dharma, the good way of life, basically. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. Unavoidably still, there are some other explanations that are incredibly outdated. Like, oh, yeah, yeah, the evil spirit who kills babies in mother wombs and whatnot. Not even one, there are like five different of those for the different reasons behind that. That's, I guess, an interesting question is to see how these spirits are talked about in the modernity, to have the possibility of asking, oh, yeah, what about these spirits that are myths to try and explain phenomena of the real world? What can we say about them now? Do we still count them? Do we discount these because science has explained them from a different perspective? What's up with that, brother? But anyways, let's I guess, yeah, approach. How long is this canto? How, dear God, dear matter of God, it's so incredibly long. It's like 6 pages. Okay, but I already said it is the final, the final canto for today. So yeah, deservingly enough, it's incredibly long. Also, let me drink some water. Actually, so yeah, let's start with this. Canto 230. Markandeya Samasya Panama continued. Markandeya continues. When Skanda had bestowed these powers, Swaha appeared to him and said, "You're my natural son, and I want you to grant me great happiness." Skanda replied, "What kind of happiness do you wish to enjoy?" Swaha said, "I am Daksha's favorite daughter." Ah, okay, sorry. "I'm Daksha's favorite daughter, Swaha. From the time I was young, I have been in love with Hutasana. The fire god. But my son, he does not know of my feelings. I want to live with him as his wife. Forever." Skanda said, "From this day, Devi, I'll offering that good man who adhere to the path of Dharma, make to the devas or the Peters to the accompaniment of purifying mantras chanted by Brahmanas, will be made jointly to Agni and Swaha. In this way, Devi, you will always live with Agni Hutasana." Markandeya continues. Swaha was immensely pleased with the boon that Skanda had given her, and with her husband Pavaka, the fire god, she worshipped Skanda in return. Then Brahma, the lord of all creatures, said to Mahasena, "Go and visit your father Mahasdeva, the conqueror of Tripura. Rudra, Agni, Uma and Swaha have worked together for the welfare of all creatures and made you invincible. The Hiranyaretas of Rudra, the highest, cast into Uma's yoni, was cast back onto this hill, and the twins, Minhika and Minhika, came into being. A portion of it fell into the sea of blood, another fell into the rays of the sun, another fell upon the earth. Thus, it was distributed in 5 portions. These fierce-looking followers of yours, who live on the flesh of animals, were born from that golden semen. Saying, "It shall be done," Mahasena worshipped his father Shiva with a son's affection. Left. Markandeya continues, "Men who want to acquire wealth and those who wish to alleviate illness should worship these 5 kinds of spirits. Born from Mahadeva, with offerings of the sunflower, those that desire the well-being of their children should worship the twins, Mihika and Midhika, also fathered by Rudra. And those who want children born to them must always worship the female spirits that live in trees, eating human flesh. All Pisachas are divided into innumerable types. And now, O king, listen and I will tell you about the banners and bells of Skanda. Sorry, I will tell you how the banners and bells of Skanda came into being. Indra's elephant Airavata had 2 bells, both named by Hayanti. The clever Sakra had them brought to him, and personally gave them to Guha. Visakha took one of those bells, and Skanda Kartikeya the other, both standards. Kartikeya's and Visakha's were red. Mahasena was pleased with what the gods had given him. Surrounded by hosts of devas and pisachas, and seated on the golden mountain, he was radiant in the splendor of his prosperity. The mountain was covered with large forests, and, like Mandara with its abundance of caves, shone in the rays of the sun. The mountain's lustrous beauty was enhanced by Mahasena's presence. The White Mountain, Sweta, was adorned with vast woodlands and covered with blossoming Santanaka trees, forest of Karabira, Parihata, Papa, Asuka, and Kadamba trees. Herds of unworldly deer roamed its hillsides, and flocks of celestial birds flew overhead. The rumble of clouds sounded like musical instruments, like the soft murmur of the sea, and to these the Gandharvas and Apsaras danced, a joyous sound of merriment rose from the courageous here. The whole world, with Indra himself, seemed to have moved to the White Mountain. Everyone was satisfied and none tired of looking at Skanda. Markandeya continues, after installing the lambent son of Agni as the leader of heaven's army, so Shiva, shining like the sun, rode with Parvati on his chariot and went to Bhadravata. Kala was his charioteer and thousands of lions drew it. They flew swiftly through Agasa as if they would devour the sky, striking terror into the hearts of all the animate beings of the world they passed. The mad beast growled ferociously. Mahadeva, lord of all creatures, sat in that chariot with Uma like a flare of lightning flashing in a mass of clouds arched over by the rainbow. The Indrahanush. Before him went the venerable Lord of World, riding on the backs of his human bearers, with his attendant Guhyakas riding in his exquisite Bimana, the Pushpaka. Bringing up the rear was Sakara, the granter of boons, on his elephant Airavata, accompanied by the Devas and marching at the head of his celestial army. On Mahadeva's right flank was the great Yaksha, Mokha, with his attendants, the Hambhaka Yakshas, and accompanied by Rakshasas wearing flower garlands. Also, on the right flank were many devas of wonderful battle prowess, along with the Vasus and the Rudras. Beside him marched the terrible Yama with his companion, Mritu, dead, followed by hundreds of dreadful diseases. Behind Mahadeva, the sharp-pointed, adorned Vihaya, Shiva's Trisula was born, and Varuna, lord of the waters, marched slowly alongside the Vihaya, carrying his own weapon, the Basa, and surrounded by his aquatic subjects, immediately to the rear of the trident. Rudra's other weapon, the Batissa, was carried, guarded by maces. marvelous cudgels, and other weapons. Following the Patisa was Rudra's brilliant parasol and his Kamandalu with their attendant Maharishis, and with Bregu, Angirasa, and others. Behind all this rode Rudra in his white chariot, providing heartening cheer with a display of his powers. In his train were the rivers, lakes, and seas, Apsaras, Rishis, Devas, Gandharvas, and Nagas, the stars and planets, the children of the gods, and many women. The women scattered flowers around them as they walked, and the clouds bowed in obeisance to Mahadeva, who was armed with his bow. The Pinaka. Some of the clouds held a white parasol over his head, and Agni and Bayu waved feathery chamaras. Mahadeva, the god with the bull for his emblem, was followed by the glorious Indra, accompanied by the Raharishis singing his praises. Gauri, Vetya, Gandhari, Kesini, Mitra, and Savitri made up Parvati's train, alongside with all the Vidyas, the deities of all the branches of knowledge. Advancing ahead of the whole formation was the standard bearer, the Rakshasa spirit that delivers to all the different Aksauhinis, commands that Indra and the other devas implicitly obey. And skipping merrily in and out and throughout the procession was that best of Rakshasas, Pingala, who is Rudra's friend, always busy in smasanas, crematoria, and charming to everyone. Good these are the offering with which mortals worship Rudra, who is also called Shiva. He is the omnipotent deity, the wielder of the bow Pinaka. He is worshipped in his many forms. He is Maheswara, Mahasena, the son of Kritika, the Senapati of the Deva army, who reveres Brahmanas, one of the Lord of Gods. Surrounded by the Deva legions, Mahadeva said to Mahasena, gravely, command the seventh Sauhini of the army with careful attention. Skanda replied, my lord, I will command the seventh legion. Is there anything else you will have me do? Rudra said, you will always find me in the field of war. You will gain great punya by looking up to me and serving me with devotion. Then Maheswara embraced him and gave him leave to go. Rahan. After Skanda left, the devas were shaken by many fell omens. The sky and its star blazed with fire, and all the universe was plunged in chaos. The earth quaked and rumbled, and darkness covered the whole world. Seeing this terrible phenomena, Sankara, the blessed Uma, the devas, and the great Maharishis were distressed. While they were bewildered, there appeared before them a savage host of mighty Danavas, armed with a myriad of weapons and looking like a mass of thunderheads and hills. Those demons could not be counted and spoke legion languages. They moved purposefully to where Sankara stood with the Devas, and into the ranks of the army of Swarga they shot flights of arrows in all directions, masses of rock, maces, Atagnis, Parasas, and Parikas. The onslaught threw Heaven's army into disarray, and the ranks wavered. The Namaravas fetched havoc by having down soldiers, horses, elephants, chariots, and weapons. The disheartened troops of the gods seemed as if they were about to turn their backs upon the enemy. Vast numbers of them fell, slain by the Asuras, like large trees burnt down in a forest fire. The Swargavasis fell with their heads separated from their bodies. There was no one to lead them in their fearful battle, and they were mown down by the enemy. Indra, the slayer of Bala, saw his forces besieged and tried to rally them. He said, do not be afraid, O heroes. May success reward your efforts. Take up your weapons and keep your courage. You will not face any further misfortune. Crush these evil ones. Come, let us attack the Navas together, and may we find success. The dwellers of heaven were reassured, and under Indra's lead, rushed against the Navas 33,000 guards, all the powerful Maruts and Satyas, and all the Vasus returned to battle. They loosed arrows that drew blood from the deities, their horses and their elephants. The sharp shafts penetrated their bodies and fell on the ground, looking like snakes dropping down the hillside. Pierced by those arrows, the ideas fell on all sides, and they looked like many small banks of clouds. The Ranava host was panic-stricken at the change of the devas. They withered before that attack. Their weapons still at the ready, the gods gave loud vent to their exhilaration, and the heavenly band struck up soulful music. The encounter took a dreadful toll on both sides. The battlefield was covered over with blood and strewn with the bodies of Devas and Asuras. The victory of the Devas was short-lived, because the Navas rallied and flew back into battle, bringing bloody havoc to the forces of Devaloka. This time, the Asuras beat their drums, blew ringing blasts on their bugles, and roared their nerve-shattering war cry. Bomba! Bomba! Now a mighty demon, the greatest of them, seized a great crag in his hands and rushed out of that dreadful deity army, looking like the sun flaring out from behind dark clouds. The Deva saw that he was about to hurl that enormous rock at them and fled. The Danava, Mahisha, pursued them and flung the crag at them. Lord of the world, 10,000 warriors of the Deva army were crushed under that immense stone. So Mahisha struck terror into the hearts of the Devas, and with his Danavas he fell upon them like a lion at the herd of deer. When Indra and the other gods saw Mahishu Mahisharusa, what? Mahishasura, leading the charge against them, they abandoned their banners and their weapons and fled. Mahisha, full of wrath, swiftly got up with Rudra's chariot and seized its central pole with both his hands. When he had seen Rudra's chariot, the earth began to groan and the great rishis fell unconscious. Massive deities, like thunderheads, became boisterous with joy, thinking that victory was theirs. Although Rudra, highest of the high, was in that plight, he did not think it worthwhile to kill Mahisha, for he remembered that Skanda will deal that death blow. Meanwhile, the fiery Mahisha, contemplating his prize of Rudra's chariot with satisfaction, sounded his war cry, terrorizing the Devas but filling the deities with joy. The Devas were in this plight when the mighty Mahasena, burning with anger and ablaze with sun-like splendor, came to battle. He wore fiery red and was bedecked with a wreath of red flowers. Encased in golden armor, he rode in a golden chariot, bright as the sun and drawn by glossy chestnut horses. At the sight of him, the Daidia's army grew instantly dispirited. Skanda distills one blinding Shakti at Mahisha, which beheaded the demon, and he fell dead. His massive head, as big as a small hill, fell to the earth and, extending 16 yohanas in length, barred the entrance to the country of the northern Kurus. Now, however, people of that country pass easily by that way, for flesh and grace still have long since turned to bones, and earth has covered them. The Devas and the Navas saw Skanda hurl his Shakti again and again on the field of battle, and it returned to his hands after killing thousands of the enemy's forces. The wise Mahasena's arrows brought down numbers of the Navas beyond count, and they were seized by panic. Skanda's followers killed them, then drank their blood and ate their flesh. Joyfully, they exterminated the Navas in a short time. Just as quickly as the sunrise does darkness, or as a great fire consumes a forest, or as the wind drives away clouds, thus did the illustrious Skanda slaughter all his enemies. The Devas eulogized him, and he, in turn, paid his respect to Shiva Maheswara, and Kritika's son shone in glory, like Suryadeva at his zenith. When Skanda had completely annihilated the enemy, and when Mahaswara had left the battlefield, Purandara embraced Mahasena and said to him, "You have slain Mahisha, who was invincible by the grace of Brahma, first of warriors. To him the devas were as easy to mow down as blades of grass. Mahavaho, you have removed a thorn from the flesh of the gods. You have killed hundreds of the Navas, all equal in valor to Mahisha, all hostile to us and who always harassed us, and your followers have devoured hundreds of them. You are, O mighty one, invincible in battle. Even like, oh my lord, this victory will be celebrated at your feast achievement. Your fame will last forever in the three worlds. All the devas will pledge their fealty to you. Saying this to Mahasena, the husband of Sachi left, accompanied by his devas, and with the leave of Shiva, the three-eyed Devadeva, Rudra returned to Bharadravata and all the celestial ones to their respective homes. Rudra addressed the gods, saying, "You must give your allegiance to Skanda just as you do to me." The son of Pavaka, the far god, slaughtered the Navas and conquered the three worlds in a single day, and the greatest rishis worship him. The Brahmana who reads this story of Skanda's spirit gains and untold prosperity in this world and the companionship of Skanda in the next. Says Markandeya. Yudhishthira says, "Oh, most venerable Brahmana, I want to know the different names of this loftiest of gods, by which he is celebrated through the three worlds." Finally, Vaisapayana continued. Thus addressed by the Pandava and that conclave of rishis, the worship of Markandeya, of great Tapasya Shakti, responds by listing the sacred names of Kartikeya. He says, Agneya, son of Agni, Skanda, the cast of Diptakirti, of blazing fame, Anamaya, always healthy, Mayukerat, Mayuraketu, the one with the peacock, what? With the peacock banner, Dharmatma, the one with the noble soul, Behutesa, lord of all beings, Mahishardana, slayer of Mahisha, Kamahit, one who has conquered desire, Kamada, fulfiller of desires, Kanta, the handsome one, Satyavak, speaker of truth, Bhaganova, Neswara, lord of the angle of the world, Sisu, child, Sikra, the swift, Sutsi, the pure, Chanda, the fiery, Deptavarna, the bright complexioned, Subhanana, the beautiful, Amokha, who cannot be baffled, Anagha, sinless, Rudra, the terrible, Priya, the loved, Chandranana, of the face like the moon, Dripta Sakti, wielder of the burning Shakti, Parasantatma, tranquil souled, Bahadrak, Bahadrakrit, doer of good, Kutamohana, holder of even the wicked, Shasti Priya, the favorite of Shasti, Pavitra, holy, uh, how do you say this? Matarbastala, one who adores his mother, Kanyabharta, protector of virgins, Bibhakta, diffused toward the universe, Swaheya, son of Swaha, Revit, Revatisutta, child of Revati, Prabhu, the Lord, Neta, the leader, Visakha, raised by Visakha, Nagameya, born of the Veda, Suduschara, difficult to propitiate, Subrata, of excellent vows, Lalita, the beautiful, Balagridana, Capriya, fond of toys, Kachari, ranger of the skies, Brahmachari, chaste, Shura, the hero, Saravana Udhava, born in a clump of reeds, Viswamitra Piriya, the favorite, Viswamitra Piriya, the favorite of Viswamitra, Devasena Priya, the lover of Devasena, Vasudeva Priya, beloved of Vasudeva, and Priya Krit, doer of pleasing deeds. These are the divine names of Kartikeya. Whoever repeats them will secure fame, wealth, and salvation. Markandeya continues, valiant son of the Kurus, listen to me. Think the other names of the mighty, six-faced, valiant Guha, who has no rival, whom Devas and Rishis venerate. Listen well to my stuti. What the fuck is a stuti? Anyways, oh, devoted to Brahman, born from the Brahman, learning the mysteries of Brahman, the Messiah, foremost of those in whom Brahman resides, from fond of Brahman, austere like Brahmanas, knowledgeable in the great mystery of Brahma, leader of Brahmanas, you are Swaha, you are Swadha, you are the holiest of the holy, all invoked in mantras, celebrated as the sixth flame fire. You are the Here, the six seasons, the moons, the fortnights, the solar declarations, and the cardinal points of space, all of the side, all of this faced, Otus and face, those armed ruler of the universe, great oblation, living, life-giving soul of the Devas and Asuras, mighty leader of armies, Prachanda furious, Lord, master and conquerors of your enemies, Sahasrabhuta of many forms, Sahasratushti, content a thousandfold, Sahasrabhuk, the warrior of everything, and Sahasrabad, thousand leg. You are the very earth, you are the one of infinite forms, of 1,000 heads and one, and of awesome strength. You can appear at will as Ganga's son, as Swaha's Magia, or as Kritika, a six-faced god. Your playmate and mount is the rooster. You can assume different forms at will. You are Daksha, Soma, Maruta, Dharma, Vayu, the prince of mountains, and Indra for all time. O most eternal of all the eternal ones, O Lord of all the lords, you are the mainspring of truth, the destroyer of Niti's progeny, and the great conqueror of the enemies of the gods. You are the personification of Dharma. You are at once vast and minute. You know the highest and the lowest of virtuous actions. The mysteries of Varama reside in you. O first among gods, O exalted Lord of the universe, your decades pervades creation. With this prayer, made as best as I can, I salute you of the 12 eyes and many hands. All the rest of your attributes defy the scope of my intellect. The Brahmana who reads this story of Skanda's beard, or narrates it to Brahmanas, or hears it being told by twice born men, gains wealth, long life, fame, children, victory, prosperity, contentment, and the companionship of Skanda. Says my Kandeya, says by Sampayana. And now, yeah, we finally switch onto a new Parva. Draupadi Satyabhama Sambada Parva. But we're not going to read that. We're not going to read that. We're stopping here. I didn't even measure that. Coincidences, you know? One day you find yourself trapped in a coincidence. What is it? Synchronicity is also called. But yeah. Can we leave this place? Okay, there it is. And let me also do that. There we go. Any conclusion? I didn't even stop to analyze the last chapter. I don't know, bro. It is incredibly complex. Let me try to say something before I feel like I failed because I didn't even try to do that. I think it talks out way too many things, but I guess the most important thing is yeah, it finally ties back to the whole story. Also, if you remember, if so for some reason you haven't here for long enough time, this was like the opening story that we had, how the gods were in a duel with the Asuras. We are repeating that. I don't know why. I don't know why with a different narration also. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, that's that's the stuff, I guess. I don't know. It's like uh, more myth of creation. The easiest category is always myth of creation. The myth of creation of the people, of the land, of the gods, of the orders, of the society itself, of everything. There was a point in which they even said, "Oh yeah, this dead being has now become the mountains that we see." So yeah, unavoidably, it's myth of creation, true and true, or however you say it. I am ESL, and I have already said way too much. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. We are done. Nothing else to say. Thank you for being here. But this is also incredibly tiring. So yeah, have a good day, and until next time. I don't know when. I I will try to not make promises, but I assume probably next Thursday or so will be Mahabharata reading yet again. So yeah, anyways, until that happens, thank you for being here. Thank you for everything. It has been a wonderful session reading understanding when it was possible. And yeah, more than anything else, having fun, seeing the war. Yeah, but yeah, as always, things how they hire it, be responsible, blah 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 blah. Eh, And even if we don't get to see ourselves next time, doesn't matter. Have a great life. Thank you very much. Yeah, good night.